Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Bikes or Death podcast. As always, my name is Patrick, and I am your host. And on today's episode, I am chatting with Andrew Onermaa about his first place Singlespeed Tour Divide win this year. And I have to be honest that I'm currently really shaken. If you don't know, Texas, specifically Central Texas, was hit with a unprecedented flood event that took the life of over 100 people. There's still 23 or so people missing, and search and rescue and the story itself is still evolving in real time. And that story broke on 4th of July. The very next day, I was waking up early to rent a car to go drive to Arkansas to meet with Andrew and have this conversation. And during that drive, I was kind of getting reports of what was going on, but wasn't able to fully tune in and realize the extent and devastation that had occurred. So I just want to acknowledge that real quick and apologize if I seem a little off, but it has hit very close to home. And I find that I'm struggling with that, but I will address that a little bit further here in a few minutes. But I do want to also acknowledge that this episode today is one that I am really excited about and I'm very proud of. And it was an honor to be able to share a little bit of time with Andrew and hear all about his story. Andrew is somebody who is near and dear to my heart. I remember whenever he raced Ted King at the Arkansas High Country back in 2020, I believe it was. I didn't know him at the time, but he really won me over with how hard he raced, and then how kind of emotional he got afterwards, and how honest he was about how hard he pushed. And we did a whole episode about that if you want to go and listen to that effort. So when I saw Andrew's dot this year on the Tour Divide, I was glued to it. I was cheering for him. And many of you will know that he was ahead of Chris Plesko's record-breaking 2016 time for almost the entirety of the Tour Divide this year, up until the very end. And we're going to be talking about the FKT and kind of what happened there towards the end on today's episode. But when I saw Andrew was on the Tour Divide, when I saw he was doing so well, I knew that this was a conversation that I really wanted to have in person. So I was stoked when he agreed to chat, and it didn't take any time at all to shift my plans and make it happen to where I could go up and have this chat in person. And I absolutely enjoyed it. And I just want to thank Andrew and his girlfriend Taylor for being such wonderful hosts and inviting me into their home and feeding me and allowing us to have this conversation. So let's get into today's episode. But first, let's thank the people that made it possible, starting with our latest patron. And this week, we'd like to thank Dave for signing up to be a supporting member of the podcast. And I just want to give my patrons an extra shout out this week, because this episode truly wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for my patrons. To be honest, so I have a broken car in the driveway, and money is really tight right now. And so I really didn't have the financial bandwidth to rent a car. But being this is the first of the month, I just got my Patreon payout, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect, because this month was a pretty decent month on Patreon. And I was like, all right, I'm going to rent a car. Like, that was the decision. So I immediately rented a car and made it happen so we could have this chat in person. And so thanks to the patrons, especially for this episode. Really appreciate you guys' support, and y'all definitely made this one happen. And because you made it happen, I also recorded this one on video, and you can watch it on YouTube if you want to. All right, well, let's segue back to the Texas Hill Country flood. And one of the things that I quickly realized whenever I got back home to Texas and finally had an opportunity to fully understand the impact of the flooding in the Hill Country, I quickly realized that the area that was essentially ground zero for the worst of the flooding, which is Kerr County, where Kerrville is right on the Texas Showdown route, and it's also on the Texas Slowdown route. And many of y'all will have heard the national news. Camp Mystic was one of those that was the greatest affected. It's a girls' camp right on the Guadalupe River, and at least 27 young girls and camp counselors have lost their life. And Camp Mystic is on the Showdown route at mile 275. And so, to say this tragic event hits close to home is nothing short of an understatement. And I am in real time trying to figure out how we, through the Central Texas Showdown, can help the victims of this tragedy and lift up this community. And one thing that I know that we're going to do is we are going to donate a portion of all of the proceeds. If you've already registered, you're already included, but all the registration fees from the Central Texas Showdown to the Texora Hill Country Relief Fund. Texora is a local nonprofit that I've been working with that's doing really great things in Texas. Of course, I'll include a link in the show notes so you can look more into them. If you'd like to contribute in other ways directly to the relief efforts, Kerr County also has a relief fund set up, and I will link to that as well. One other thing that we are going to be doing, if you're interested, I will be providing more information about how the Central Texas Showdown will be supporting the relief efforts through our social media and newsletter channels. So just stay tuned for that. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for bearing with me as I go through all that. This one's tough. So thank you. And without further ado, it is my absolute privilege and honor to bring you a chat with my good friend, Andrew Onermaa. But first, let's have my other good friend, Miles Arbor, kick it off with the Bikes for Death theme song.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes or death. Bikes or death. Podcast.
Andrew Onermaa. Wait a second. How do you say your last name?
That's right. You nailed it.
Did I?
Yeah, you nailed it.
I really thought that I've been pronouncing it incorrectly.
No.
Okay.
I think that's my number one way I say it.
Okay.
I think it's kind of like the combo you had with Shell Money, where it's like, oh yeah, sometimes it's Monet, sometimes it's money. There's a particular phrase he used. Do you remember what that was? Or maybe you did.
Well, he said something along the lines of, if I'm talking about the same thing, where he's like, pick one and be indignant about it. Yeah. Like whatever one you say, like, no, fuck you. I heard Shell Money say himself, it's Monet or it's money or whatever. Yeah. Pick one.
Similar. So you nailed it. Good job.
All right. Speaking of good job, congratulations on the Tour Divide, Singlespeed Tour Divide first place.
Thank you. I'll cheers to that.
Holy shit. I will drink to that.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
But not as much as the first time. Is that our running agreement?
Yep.
So Andrew Onermaa is back on the podcast after just finishing a pretty epic run at the Tour Divide, and I had to drive to Arkansas to come and like have this conversation in person. Like whenever you were riding it, I was like, I hope he'll agree to a podcast, and if he does, I'm driving to come and have it in person. So
and that's like how I replied. You texted me about it, and I was like, yeah, if you wanted to show up and do one, that'd be dope. But I didn't really want to do one over the phone or over Zoom, especially as like my first one after it. It's just like it's so fresh and raw, and being able to sit down. And we haven't been able to hang out in a while either. So I was like, man, that'd be nice just to like kick it in person and talk about it. So,
do you know what's crazy? You and I hope I'm not wrong about this because I have a bad memory, but you and I have never ridden bikes together.
I think the one time we were going to maybe try it was when you came to do the other pod in Arkansas. And I think one of us was running late or whatever, or maybe you weren't able to bring a bike. I don't know what it was, but
when I came up for the Brett ITT,
no, it was for the first podcast you recorded with me by the Mulberry River.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, we haven't. So we need to change that.
I know. That's what I was like. It's crazy. I feel like I know you as well as I do at this point, and I'm like, but we've never ridden bikes together.
I mean, it's almost exclusively now. We're both putting on events, and sometimes we're at like the same event, and so if we see each other, it's usually in the event realm where one of us is either working it or participating in it, and it's, you know how it goes. It's so many people that you can have a brief moment of, hey, what's up, and catch up. But it's like 5 minutes, and you wish you could spend like a full bike ride together, catching up on everything. So
I know. Next time,
yeah.
But I literally just drove to Arkansas. We're gonna chat, and then I'm driving back tomorrow morning,
which is amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for that. I know there's a lot of friends that would love to hear these stories. So you're like helping me communicate with all my friends, which is amazing.
No, happy to do it.
Yeah. A lot of text messages I haven't replied to. So I hope I can just be like, here's the whole story. Like, tune in.
That's what Stephen Fitzgerald said on our last the episode I did with him. He was like, I'm just going to email, like every time someone asks me a question, I'm just emailing them this episode.
Yeah, I listened to that. I remember hearing that. And he's like, oh yeah, this is great. I'm just going to defer him to this.
I don't mean this lightly. I feel very honored to be here. And I honestly, like, it's weird because I don't know if you realize how high of a regard I hold you in. I learned about you whenever you raced against Ted King in 2020 at the Arkansas High Country, and I was like, there's a lot of things about your performance, and then your emotional vulnerability afterwards that like really appealed to me, and like I really looked up to you, and now you're my friend, you know? And so it's weird, like I hold you in, like I have Andrew the friend, and I have Andrew the guy that I really look up to and like respect and hold in like really high regard. So it's an honor to be here, man.
Thanks,
and
man.
It's an honor to like hear your stories and be able to like share this moment with you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I see you as a friend, and I'm just another dude, you know. We all have our quirky things that some of us are really good at certain things, and we enjoy it a lot, and it works out, and sometimes it doesn't work out. And I love the fact that you just shine so much light on this community and telling stories, and just how valuable that is to everybody throughout the whole year too. It's like, we'll be getting into the divide obviously, but people are thinking about the divide for a year straight. It's like they want to squeeze out every drop of content and media possible to like fuel the fire or learn what they can, and just even relate to what they're about to experience. And so, yeah, these conversations are super rad. So thank you.
It is absolutely my pleasure. It's crazy that I do this. It's like weird. It's like all these people that I like look up to, I'm just like, hey, do you want to chat? And they will, you know? And it's like, holy shit. The people that I get to talk to is like, wow.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love listening to all the combos.
You included. The only thing that I'm bummed about is the fact that you don't have your Tour Divide bike here.
Yeah. I was even wondering if afterwards I should have done a bike breakdown video or something. And I took it to the shop almost immediately. And I mean, we can get into it to some extent, but like some of the stuff on it was borrowed. Like I borrowed Alex Kowalski's front wheel and dynamo hub and sine wave beacon, and he wasn't in a hurry to get it back. But I was like, man, I don't even own this. Like, thank you so much for letting me ride it 2,700 miles across North America. Let me get it checked out to a local shop and get it back to you in like perfect condition. And part of it also is like, I just want to have that bike ready to go rip single track with like nothing on it.
It's reasonable.
Yeah. So
Well, you're taking a little downtime right now to let your body recover. You said you went on a run today though.
Yeah. I went on a run yesterday and today.
2 runs since you've been back.
But yeah, the bike, it's like, let me get in the shop immediately. It just went through a lot. Shout out Smokehouse Cycles. My friend Jake Lee started a bike shop in Southern Fayetteville, and I just love supporting friends that run businesses or trying to run businesses. And so I was like, here, immediately, let me give you more business. Like, this bike just went through a lot. Check it out. Let me know what's up. And let's get it ready for just ripping some local single track. So that's why I got it there so quick.
Yeah.
It was also just like an opportunity to have a conversation with him. It's like, your mechanic is part of your team leading up to an event like this.
Oh, and my gosh, so valuable.
Go to your mechanic afterwards in person and be like, hey, everything was amazing. Thank you so much. Check it over. I'm like taking a break and then I'm ready to ride it here soon. So yeah, that's why I don't have it with me today. So it's a valid excuse, I think.
I think no, it's valid, logical, reasonable, and everything else. But nothing would have made me happier than to like see the bike, touch the. I might have rode the bike, the bike, the setup that rode the Tour Divide.
Well, if I ever ride it again, I'll remember. If I do the Divide again, I'll remember.
Put in a special request. Transition back into reality.
Yeah.
Like really, like what is it like to? I mean, the whole thing, right? Like, what is it like to? I mean, I'm not asking you to describe the entire thing, but like, essentially, I mean, Tour Divide is a huge goal.
Mm-hmm.
You go and you do it, and you're checked out of reality, and you come back to reality. Like, what is that transition like? And also, like, I'm really interested in like physically how that has taken a toll on you.
Definitely. Well, you hear, I mean, basically, you can only base it off of other people that have actually gone through it. Like anyone can predict, oh, you're going to feel like this, you're going to feel like that. But you talk to Divide veterans, people that have done it, and like, how did that affect you and what was life like? And I remember earlier in the spring mentioning like, oh yeah, after the Divide, I'll like swap out pedals and like start training and transitioning towards this. And like Ezra laughed a little bit. He's like, dude, it's gonna be like a few weeks before you're like thinking about training and stuff. And you like get those reminders. And you're like, oh yeah, this is bigger than anything I've ever done before.
Right.
And yeah, finished on Saturday. So that would have been a week ago. Taylor picked me up at the border and
oh, wow.
Yeah, which that was amazing.
By the way, Taylor's here joining us in the background.
Yeah,
our audience.
Taylor, my amazing girlfriend, came and picked me up at the border. She
and a birthday podcast shout out to Taylor because she
Taylor
just had a birthday
too. And our dog Jax just had a birthday too.
Aw. Yeah, if you're not watching this episode, I have a guest, a friend on the couch,
sleeping
Jackson,
on the couch.
13-year-old. What kind of dog? Dachshund Yorkie mix. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Andrew.
So she picked me up at the border, and of course, like, you don't really try to plan ahead on what you're going to say when you see the first person or whatever. Like, I knew Taylor's going to be the first person I was going to see. I wasn't rehearsing, like, here's my grand first 2 sentences upon finishing of what I want to say about my experiences. I was just looking at the time, and then I looked up and I just said, like, oh my God. And, it's just like, oh, it's over, and hopped the curb there and touched the sign. And almost immediately, like Taylor, just like being familiar with ultras and me and everything, she's like, I got a cooler of all kinds of different drinks. What do you want? I got snacks. You had to change of clothes, everything like that. And I was like, I just want water. It was like, that was the first thing is I was bone dry on water, and I wanted water. So like, I drank some cold water right away. And then, it's like you get that uplift of energy and emotions and everything. And then quickly after, it's like your body starts shutting down. And so
let's put a pin. Let's just, what are those emotions like when you finish? I mean, for you, like what were the emotions that you were experiencing?
I think a lot of the final emotions are experienced like maybe an hour or two before the actual finish.
Okay.
Because it's kind of like, it's over at that point.
Right.
Especially when you get off the final bit of the CDT and onto pavement, and you're like, okay, I'm riding 30 miles of pavement to the finish.
You go past the Cheetah store.
Yeah, like at that point, it's flat rolling, and doesn't demand your brain. And it's like you're very unlikely to suddenly get a mechanical at that point or whatever. And so I think that whole final rollout is probably when a lot of people experience most of those emotions. And then the very final bit, like the cap to it is, maybe is it a solo experience? Is there another rider there that waited for you? Do you have a significant other? And so for me, it was definitely just that relief of being done, just to be so focused on forward progress for over 15 days. Like having a singular focus was such a bizarre thing I've never experienced in my life until then. Like I've had big pushes of expeditions or whatever it may be, maybe upwards of like 7 days, but to more than double that is something I've never experienced. And
to go from that to really now your job becomes rest.
Yeah.
Stop moving.
Mm-hmm.
So you make a very quick transition to a totally different speed.
And you're making what feels like a million decisions a day, and all of a sudden you're trying to minimize any decision making whatsoever. But it was definitely that relief, and then just like the joy of seeing her, and then just knowing things were already lined up. She's like, hey, I'm going to drive us to Las Cruces. We got an Airbnb. We're going to have a late dinner, and then we're going to stay another whole day.
Oh,
and another
rockstar
night.
move there. That's good stuff.
And then we even broke up the drive into another day. So we drove to Amarillo, stayed the night in a hotel, and then finished it off. So it was like that in itself was amazing to really take my time, like coming back. And I was still like pretty awake. It was Martin that came in maybe like 45 minutes after me or so. Looking at track leaders, it was Benjamin. Sorry, it was Benjamin. Martin was someone that passed me. Benjamin came in, so we got to greet him at the finish. It's like he would have had nobody. So it's like Taylor and I there. We're like, hey, what's up? Good job. Yeah. Awesome. And he's from Germany, I believe. And Taylor was the same thing. She's like, I got a cooler full of cold drinks and some snacks. What do you want? And so he was stoked on that. And then a little bit after.
That's so cool. Like the Tour Divide is the end of the Tour Divide is much lonelier than I think people realize for most of the people. I've been there when like Sophiane finished.
You've driven out there how many times? 3 times now?
3 times.
Yeah, that's super cool.
I
You've
really
even made like the unofficial like podium photo before. I've seen that, which is amazing.
Yeah. I think you mimicked it in the Doom one.
I did this past year.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, made a makeshift podium.
Courtesy to Aaron for that. It's just like a moment where you've just been sitting there for hours sharing stories and hanging out, and then we're like, oh wait, we have the women's podium here. Like, hey, you want to be our first Doom podium ever? So it was like, here's the top 3 women, well, except for Natalie. I drew a cutout of Natalie, and then we held up a cardboard.
Yeah, I know. Natalie, that was so good.
Because she was at the hospital.
Yeah.
That's a long story. But
no,
Natalie,
that photo I took is, man, I've taken some cool photos, but that one like really for me was like one of the coolest
that
photos
needs
I've
to
ever
be
taken.
Framed and put up, and like there needs to be some cool bikepacking lounges around the country, and that needs to be up in some bikepacking lounges. But like, going back to the recovery and being there, and so like it was cool because we had a few moments. Like I barely saw him, so I didn't know him at all, but just still to be like, hell yeah, man. And then also, can I take your finisher photo? He's like, oh yeah, that's great. Like, yeah, let's do that. Yeah. So he got to have the full sign in the background and not him just taking a selfie. And we made sure he was squared away with getting picked up for the bike ranch there. And then we're like, all right, cool, I'm out of here. But like right before we rolled out, it was the partner of another finisher happening later that evening. She was there getting ready to greet. And so she's like, oh, congrats. And but as we're in the car, and Taylor starts driving us to Las Cruces, you're still processing, digesting, you're kind of awake. But the first thing I noticed was even her going 45 miles an hour, I felt like we were fucking flying. Yeah. Because like you're just used to living by bike for 2 weeks, and that was something I did not expect. But I was like, oh my God, we're going so fast. And she's like, we're going 45. I was like, I know we're not going fast, but wow, this feels insane.
Yeah. I've experienced that probably to a lesser degree. And I think most people listening probably know exactly what you're talking about, but you did it for 15 days and it's like, oh my God, this is like way more dramatic.
It's been a while since, I had that experience and it really surprised me.
What about like, I feel like I'm a slow transitioner from like, whether I'm being like a social person to a isolated person riding a bike or whatever, like you meet up with Taylor, your girlfriend, and like all of a sudden you're back in a relationship and you're doing that life. Like, was there like a transition period?
No, that part was really easy. It was like just like being with her is super natural and easy, and we lived together. So, and it wasn't like there wasn't going to be any last minute variables. Like I just knew it was going to be smooth.
Yeah.
Because I know her, and like I wasn't going to be like, hey, by any chance did you bring
that makes so
shorts,
much sense.
like running shorts for me to get out of this, and like
you
slides.
knew everything. Yeah. Like it was a moment of like probably peace and comfort. Where you're like, okay, I'm good.
And then like maybe your first time where you're having an interaction that's not just like with the cashier. That's when you're like, oh, this is my first interaction that's basically not just with the cashier in a while. But yeah, I fall asleep a little bit after that, and I sleep all the way till Las Cruces. Is like a 2.5 hour drive, and that ended up almost being too much. Like by the time we were getting there, I just felt even more drained to where I was like, I don't even know if I can get out of the car to like take a shower and then go to bed. I might just have to. Like I was still filthy. I was like, you have the bed. I'll just like lay on the couch or on the floor or something. Like what I was already thinking. And then it's like any Airbnb that's somewhere like a little bit more downtown. Sometimes it's funky where it's like, well, do you park on this side of the building or this side? And then where's the place we enter the code? And she's like trying to figure that out. I'm like, this is real complicated right now. Like, I'm just going to sit here and try to be awake, and I hope you got it. And I did end up taking a shower, and then we even ended up like figuring out what was available to eat, which there's almost nothing. Is like, luckily there's this cool brewery that still had their kitchen open. So we ordered food from the brewery, and then we even left, and like, I was down to go there. I was like, yeah, I'm showered. I have fresh clothes. I want to get out for a second. And so we picked up food. We brought it back to the Airbnb, ate it, and then had my first like real sleep in quite a while, like hey, I'm not setting an alarm and I'm just waking up when I feel like it. And
let's talk about that. That's interesting. Because I have quite a few questions on sleep, and we'll see how many we get into, but what is it like to get to sleep again after something like that for as long as you want? No alarm clocks.
It's probably one of the best immediate rewards you get after. Like you can like have all these tiers of like rewards or accomplishments or however you want to frame it. But like, what are the things you're looking forward to? And sleep, it's still not the number one thing. It's like the fact that you just get a stop is like the number one.
Okay.
Is like I can sit down I get to sit down on a curb, like even like rewinding all the way back to Antelope Wells. It's like I can sit down on a curb and just not give a shit. Like I can sit on this curb for 35 minutes and like sip on some drinks, and that's fine. Like that's it. That's how like hyper focused it is at the beginning.
That's such a good point. Yeah, like like when you finish, you can like sit down and have a coffee for as long, like the time clock stops on all.
And I think everybody like takes it to a different degree of like seriousness or intensity. But for me, like, especially being single speed, minimizing stoppage time was one of the most important factors of my entire ride. Yeah. And so for over 15 days, when one of your number one requirements in life is to minimize your stoppage time, the fact that you can be like, that is gone. Like, we no longer care about stoppage time. Stop all you want. I think that's like the number one immediate best thing in the world.
So interesting. I love that.
I think I wanted the water like more than that at the moment. Like, I think the water, ultimately I would have chosen water second, because I was like, well, if I don't have to worry about moving, then I'm fine with chilling for a couple hours, and then I finally get some water or something.
I'm curious about the water because the Hachita Bike Store is 30-ish miles from the finish.
Yeah, I didn't stop at it. I stopped at a travel center before it. Mm-hmm. There was like a
right at
almost
the interstate,
like
at the interstate coming
and I didn't
the
even know that
bridge.
was there, but I saw a couple people were spending some time there, and it's like then I started zooming in on maps. It's like, oh, sick, that's actually a spot where I might be able to, because I skipped Silver City on resupply altogether because nothing was open.
Okay,
so I had a real big run out that I wasn't planning on. But anyway, I was just like, it's kind of like that classic, I'm close enough, like I'm not going to stop. I'm going to just finish it off type of thing. And I still had a fair bit of water on me. Like I had three tall bottles, and then I had another liter strapped on top of my rear bag, and then I even had an energy drink in my top tube bag. So it wasn't like I was just throwing it out there, but not giving a shit. But I probably could have used like another 2 liters of water.
Yeah, you've ridden for 15 days and you were just thirsty.
Yeah. And it was just like, also that section is so slow going, and you're in the desert, and it was fucking hot. It's you're constantly playing catch up at that point on hydration.
All right, so coming back into reality, physically and mentally, like from the mental side, we hear a lot, and I've experienced. I just came back from Colombia, and I had a bout of depression, what do they call it? Like post-trip depression.
Yeah,
something.
I know what you're talking about.
And also like physically, like you've been making comments as I've been here this evening, just as like that allude to the fact that this effort took a huge toll on you.
Yeah. So I guess that's like the super short term is getting to Las Cruces and breaking up the drive. And we did some walking around to eat food, and even went into a couple art museums. And so I did some walking around the next day and everything. And it was kind of just each day a wall would hit and be like, no more for today.
Okay.
I can sit on the couch and watch TV is like the best I can do. Otherwise I'm just sleeping, period. And it'd be not big windows of the day. And maybe you sleep for a few hours and you wake up and you're like, hey, I can be normal for like a couple hours, and then I'm out again. So it's like each day is a little bit better. Yesterday was the first day I considered exercise, really. I wanted to join a group ride, like an easy 20-mile group ride on Thursday, which would have been Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like 5 days after finish. And I was like kind of into the idea, but I realized my right hand still isn't functioning normally. Like I can't squeeze toothpaste out. I can't like really deal with zippers.
I hope you don't wipe your butt with your right hand.
You can make a big enough of a clump to where it's not too bad.
All right, good.
But it's like finessing. I got sushi from Walmart earlier because we were in a hurry doing something, and I got the chopsticks out, and I'm like about to eat in the car. Taylor's driving, and I'm like, I can't use the chopsticks. And she's like, oh, you can just stab it.
Is that from the broken hand?
No, it's from the ride for sure. I noticed it maybe like the second to last day, and it was probably with zippers first. It was like, whoa, this is all of a sudden hard. So it's very directly related to the divide. And the left hand is pretty much fine. A little bit I can notice in the left hand, but the right hand definitely, like my pinky and then the next finger, so that'd be the ring finger.
Yeah.
These two are, I wouldn't say like numb, but they're just real funky.
From the ulnar nerve. Those are the two, yeah.
And there's a lot that goes into that, but it's definitely from doing what I did.
It's so funny because while you were explaining that, I was thinking to ask a follow-up question about, is that from shifting on your right hand? And then I'm like, wait a second. Nope, that's not from shifting.
That's funny. Yeah. And I'm very fortunate, like with work this week, where I shot a message to my boss and I was like, hey, wrap things up. We're breaking up the drive. But Taylor did bring my laptop out, and I can start opening the laptop on Monday on the way back and start getting into the emails and everything. And he was just super gracious. Like, don't even worry about opening the laptop this week. Just get back, get back in the rhythm. And then like we already have plans for next week and stuff. And so
tell me your boss's name again.
Boss's name is Sean Thurman.
Sean Thurman, you're a hero.
Yeah,
you're a hero. We love you.
Yeah, he's awesome.
That was a nice move. Boss move.
He's been super supportive. He's been watching the dots, and I have like a whole group of coworkers that were super stoked on it. Even like Taylor's work was excited about it. I mean, you know how it goes. Like people get into dot watching without realizing that that's going to all of a sudden be part of their summer or
I love that.
their week or whatever. So that's kind of like recovery in a nutshell. Like I mentioned, I did the run yesterday instead of the group ride because of my hand, and then I ran today. Don't feel fast. Don't feel particularly light on my feet.
What about cognitively right now? I'm a little hungover. Yesterday was 4th of July, and last time you and I spoke, we drank probably a little slightly too much whiskey, and this time I'm hungover, so we'll see how it goes.
I don't know. Taylor can attest better to it than me. I think it's the baseline's okay, and then topics I'm interested in, I can still do pretty well. If it's I don't know. Some of the decision making or figuring things out, I've been pretty useless. She's been pretty great. She's been doing most of the driving too. Like
probably good.
Yeah,
it's still scary.
Yeah, but by like next week, I think it'll be just feeling like a little bit of overall fatigue and maybe a little bit of brain fog, but nothing to detract me from like still doing my like 100% for a job. Now if it's like super physically intensive, then maybe I'd be more at like 90% for a job than like 100%. If it's a bike race, then I definitely wouldn't be at 90%. Like, so
what hurt the most?
I like all my leg pain. I felt for the most part was in week 1, which is kind of crazy. It was like week 2, you know, how some people talk about your whole body it's like, this is what I do now. It's like almost a primal state of you just tap into something different, which is really cool. But there was a day I texted Taylor. I had pretty intense internal dialogue of a while of like, there's no way I can chase Plesko's dot. Like this injury is so bad. I was like, I might just have to tour it in altogether, like really slow down on the pace and not even care about placing. And there was even a little bit of, I might have to quit because this is jeopardizing like the rest of my year. And
that's interesting. Your stats don't bear this out. So this is interesting.
And I think that day was, I want to say it's like my quad is this crazy thing with my quad. My knee, it was my quad and my knee as a combo. It was like my knee, if I twisted it at all and it bared any weight, it was absolutely excruciating. But if it was in the perfect pedaling motion, it would work out. But like if I, for some reason, was getting into something more techy and I said kind of like twisted my heel and try to do something, I don't know, it wasn't super often. It's more if I got on and off the bike and put weight on my leg and moved my knee at all, then it'd be this insane pain.
Okay.
But the quad I could apply no pressure to the pedal whatsoever. It was like I almost wanted to just pedal one-legged, but I wasn't clipped in. So it's like you don't get the pull motion, so you can't even do the one leg pedal. And like it was... Maybe, I know definitely Achilles was really bad at one point and other parts of the leg. But I think as far as just like sheer physical pain, it was, that would have been not the day finishing the basin, but I think that'd be the day after the basin. Or, no, that's the day before the basin.
Oh,
that's the day before the basin.
So whenever, I was picturing like a lot of, flat miles.
There's like some mountain passes before it. And I think I did a pretty big run out on just like effort. Like I did a bigger push. But yeah, that was definitely it. It was like intense pain in the legs where I just felt like I was really jeopardizing injury.
Do you know what caused it and what ultimately how'd you get through that?
I think pretty early on I had something going on with my left leg in one spot or another, and then you just continually kind of shift your form to compensate, and you do enough compensation, and then that's going to make something else flare up because you're not using your muscles normally. And so I think I just basically shifted around stuff for several days until ultimately it got to a point where it's like, hey, this is the final boss of you shifting everything around. And now this one's going to like scream at you like a motherfucker to just stop altogether.
Yeah.
And so I think that's ultimately what it was.
And did it just alleviate itself? Like you just stopped shifting around?
And I ended up like calling that day earlier than I would have. I got a motel and it was still light out. It was like probably the first time I ever stopped when it's still light outside. Yeah. And that would have been rolling into, I believe, Pinedale. I would have to double check that on my day-to-day rides, but it was before the Basin. So it was definitely before Boulder. The people that know the Divide really well are screaming right now. They're like, it's definitely this town. No, it's before Boulder. So that was definitely the most physical pain.
And you stopped early, you slept, and you woke up and...
I woke up at like 1 a.m. and then had a massive day after that.
And it felt fine.
I started the day, it was a lot of pavement to start, so that helped a little bit. Kind of flat pavement, which there's a few times where I did that, where I'd stop right before a bunch of flat pavement, and that's how I'd wake up and start riding, is like, okay, here's some miles to ease into the day.
You would stop?
Yeah, I would like stop riding and go to sleep. It's like,
and so when you woke up the next day, then you're like, I just got this.
Because it's like, everybody kind of has their different sleep tactics. Some people are really strict. They're just like, I end at midnight. Or like, I was way flexible with how I slept. For the most part, I wasn't like sleeping during the day at all, but I never had a hard set, I'm doing X number of hours today, or I definitely have to make it here. It was very flexible day to day.
Interesting.
I did not, and part of that's just because I didn't have a plan. Like some people have like a dialed plan, and some people you can do that as a rookie and that works out. I think it's more likely to work if you're a veteran and you've done it multiple times and you're like, okay, I can gauge like the effort in between certain zones and how it makes sense with resupplies, or like how I time things, seeing it in the light versus the dark. There's like some key strategy you can play there, but I hadn't seen the route before. So I don't know. I didn't have a plan there. And then I liked the loose idea of move 16 hours a day. That was kind of like my loose game plan, was move 16 hours a day.
Okay.
And I, 2 nights before the race, I panicked a little bit. I was like, well, I should at least know where I end night one. Like that should make sense. It's like, how they always say like, well, everything can change after day one or this or that. I'm like, but I didn't even make a plan for day one. And so I was like zooming in on different areas. I'm like, well, I want to get past Fernie if weather's fine. I was like, where's a good place to bivvy maybe? Like, I was kind of like zooming in on the maps, and then shout out Maggie. She gave an Excel sheet.
Livels?
Yes, in Pennsylvania, I believe. Yeah. I'm the shitty person that never knows how to say anybody's last name.
Yeah.
That's why I don't expect anyone to say my last name a certain way either. It's like, I just don't care.
Maggie's been on the podcast before.
She's amazing. Yeah. An awesome steward.
Another single speeder, by the way.
Another single speeder.
Yeah, she won
amazing steward of the sport. All around great human.
You'll be interested maybe to know that I interviewed Chris Joyce and Maggie M.
Together.
Or Maggie L. They did a route in West Virginia that I'm...
It was the Grusk, right?
The Grusk, yeah. They did the Grusk, yeah. They won
so she shared a sheet with so many different like resupply points and mileages and things like that. And so that was basically my planning, is she shared that with like me and Randy Wendell and I think Shannon Sanders, a few other Arkansas folks, and then maybe 1 or 2 other people. And so I was glancing at that some before the race, but maybe I opened it like twice and like skimmed through it, like didn't look at anything really. And then I started looking at it a little bit more for day one while I was sitting around in Banff. Like you're just kicking the feet up, waiting for the race to start. And that's when I was like, man, I should have a plan for night one. And she had a couple notes, and there was, so I think that was, I don't know how I got on the topic of that, but that was like basically, the plan was non-existent.
I don't know how we got on this topic either, but it doesn't matter. It's a great topic. This is interesting to me because like I know you, like when I think about you, you and I have like, yeah, business wise and stuff. Like you are a planning person.
Yeah.
Is the way I like look at you. Plan for this podcast. Like you're a planner. Why no plan for the Tour Divide? Why no overall?
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't even have like a place to stay on night one. You didn't have a target goal for night one.
Towards the end, I ran out of time. That's for sure. So I was for those,
which is the reason I really relate to.
For those unaware, I've been working at Unbound Gravel for the last 3 years. So this would be my third year, but this year was a lot more involved. I stepped into a new position as what's called event production manager, and so the way Sean described it was, well, you're coming into this very late. You're not going to be drinking from the fire hoses. They say you're going to be drinking from the fire extinguisher. Oh. And I was like, okay, yeah. I mean, it is what it is, you know, like I'm ready to lean into it. And I was nervous about that right before the divide because I spent so much time, at least like physically prepping and mentally as far as ready to put your mind through that kind of expedition. But yeah, I was insanely busy in Emporia working. Right before that, it feels like Doom was right before that, putting on my own event. And then weather was insane and I had to create brand new routes the week of. And yeah, just life got really busy. And so that was part of it. And then everybody always says that you can make a plan, but it changes or whatever. And just having done some ultras and talking to enough people, some of it was just knowing I needed to be ready to adapt. And especially since that becomes your life for so long, it's like you're going to find your rhythm eventually. I was just hoping I'd find it sooner than later. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's definitely moments where you can be way more efficient or really save a day, like having more knowledge and being like tactful with it. But I think part of that was just like, this is my rookie year. It is what it is.
This is a learning year kind of, right?
Yeah. Going back, I would have so many things that I could do just a little bit differently. And you hear that time and time again.
Mental notes.
But yeah, it's also like, if you're unfamiliar with the terrain, the distance to Fernie just going to wreck me, especially being single speed. Like, am I going to get to Fernie and be like, no way, I need a motel now? Yeah. And then it's like, okay, what was the point of planning past Fernie? So yeah, ultimately it's just starting to look at spots where I might bivvy after Fernie. And then turns out day one while I'm riding, I still didn't know where I was going to end the day. It was like just rolling with it.
Yeah, just roll with it. What was your longest ride prior to, I think I know the answer to this. Oh, not ride, sorry. More specifically, what was your longest race effort prior to Tour Divide?
Longest race, and I want to say race that I finished too, because I think that's important. Like, you can start any distance, but if you didn't finish it, you didn't do that race distance. So my longest distance, the race actually started yesterday. It's north-south Colorado. And I want to say it's like 560 miles. It's under 600. And that's my longest like race completion. And other than that, the Arkansas High Country is something that I completed once and then tried to race it once. And I dropped out like 700 miles in. Yeah. Somewhere between 600 and 700, I think. So really it's like both times.
My notes say 700.
Okay. So I think it's both times it's, okay, so I guess 700 is a little bit longer, but I didn't, like, you went that distance, but you didn't pace yourself accordingly to be able to make it to the finish type of thing.
But it's like Mike Hall said, if you look at things as pass fail, it can be like that's maybe the wrong approach.
Yeah.
Look at everything as an experience to learn.
For sure.
Right. And so like 700 miles racing Ted King on Arkansas High Country was an extremely informative experience.
Absolutely.
Whether you didn't finish or not, it's still informed. And then you go and you have a completion at north to south. And I'm curious, like, how those experiences like helped prepare you for Tour Divide. Like, Yeah.
How do
they inform me? Like even like burning out too much against Ted King and like, you know.
Well, it's like you learn, of course, you learn all the day-to-day nuances of things on your bike and like what you do when you stop, especially at a gas station. What are all the things you can check off the list to be efficient and knock it all out at once? As far as performance-wise and tactics and everything, I think those two races helped me learn more about just what I can do with a one push effort. Anything else I had done is even shorter and always a one push effort. So it's kind of like, okay, say I get this deep into the divide and I've been relatively on top of my sleep, then that means I can theoretically still do this kind of push to finish it off because I've done that before already. So it gives you a little bit of a reference point. And then also just being familiar with like, okay, I can move my body for X number of hours of the day for this many days before I need a bigger rest or whatever it may be. So, it's like, it's definitely learning experiences, but significantly shorter. You know, some people even like be like, well, you haven't even done like a bike packing race yet. Like if you've done like one of your races is you slept for 2 hours once and then you slept for 20 minutes the other, that's not even a bike packing race. So it's like, Tour Divide, no one can argue like that's a bike packing race. So in some senses, me stepping into it, I felt like it was my first proper bike packing race. So that's kind of like the mindset I took going into it. Was definitely some of the like humble, a lot of respect towards it. Like this is uncharted territory for me for sure.
How much pressure / and or nerves? Yeah, how much pressure did you feel or did you put on yourself going into it?
I didn't really, I felt like relaxed and calm going into it. Like there's some of the nerves of, especially hanging out in Banff, you're just kind of like fidgeting, you're like ready to start. I had some issues with my dropper post where it wasn't quite functioning at 100%. And I ended up having to go to a few shops in Banff. And so that was, I don't want to say like making me anxious, but I was like, this is not what I want to be doing with my time right now.
Yeah.
And so that distracted me some, but work definitely distracted me before that. But I was also just like really excited on bikes and community because of that event. So it was like positive energy coming out of that. And then just a bunch of friends being like, hell yeah, you got to go do the Tour Divide. So not a whole lot of pressure. Being single speed was just kind of like freeing in a way where, I mean, that's a large part of why I did it single speed, is where I got to really focus on my own ride. Is just like, I just got to settle into it is what it is.
Yeah.
And you can't think as much about what other people are doing because in a way they're playing a different game. And so you just have to focus on the game you're playing and then see how that plays into the bigger game.
See where the chips land.
Yeah. And so, I wasn't blasting things all over the internet or anything, but going into it was like, I wanted to complete the route. That was number one goal. I wanted to win the single speed category. And then the other thing was, well, there's two other things. I wanted to set the single speed record if things were going well. A big part of that was condition dependent. I was immediately accepting, hey, there might be like a day where you get stuck in peanut butter mud and you have to wait for 16 hours and it's out the window immediately. So I didn't want to put too much weight on the single speed record because so much of that is conditions. And then Can I
read you a quote real quick?
Sure, yeah, sure.
From Chris Plesko?
No way.
Yeah. What you just said was so perfect. So I went back to a 2016 article with Chris Plesko, who has the FKT single speed record. And so the question was, what advice do you have for the next single speeder who wants to break your record?
Oh, wow. I wish I saw that. I never saw that.
And Chris says, bribe whoever controls the weather, ! And he went on to say, but really anyone who can break my record probably doesn't need my advice. Enjoy the training, the self-sufficiency, and each day of the ride. Whenever you can push further, I'll be cheering for you from my computer.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think I might have actually read that once because I remember him mentioning the weather. And then anyone that would be, he basically said like anyone that would be like, I'm not going to have some magic sentence to say like, you're already you're ready to play the game if you think you're gonna...
People who are doing this don't need my advice, but like have a great ride, enjoy it.
Yeah, it's like this. Yeah, that's totally something I would say as well. I'll do one more too. Taylor's being great and getting us more beer.
Yeah.
While we keep talking bikes.
Whatever we were talking about.
Yeah. So the single speed record, if weather lines up and things are going well, and that's just like a really cool thing to chase. For me, I really love the idea of having a chance to have a slice of Tour Divide history. There's like all these different ways where you could have your small slice of Tour Divide history. I mean, no matter what, if you finish it, you have a slice of Tour Divide history. Yeah. And then like even within that, you have like the proud people of like, well, I finished before the broom wagon, or I beat 20 days, I beat 19, 18, whatever it may be. Like there's all these different slices of the pie. And like one that I thought would be so sick is like a single speed record. Cause I'm not someone that is like, I don't call myself a single speeder. Okay. That might come to a shock to some people. But that's just like one of the ways I ride bikes. And I think it's really awesome and amazing. And I have some incredible friends that are diehard single speeders. That's all they do is ride single speeds. Some of my favorite podcasts is from single speeders talking to other single speeders about like the AZT or the CTR or whatever. But the single speed is something that just made sense with, for one, the bike I have the sliding dropouts, and I had already ridden it single speed a lot. I have this really awesome community of single speeders that show up to Doom each year, and it keeps growing. And I've done Doom single speed, and it's just like something I resonate with a lot. So it's like, here's a group of people that I resonate deeply with, that also plays the game of the Tour Divide. And like, they're super stoked on everyone single speeding. And so I was like, man, I think that's really cool too. I wonder if I could like play with the greats of the single speeding game in Tour Divide. So, especially rookie year, just like, I thought it'd be really stupid of me to see how well I could do overall, you know?
Yeah.
And then it gets more and more competitive every year too, where like no one would have guessed this year times would have been as fast as they were. Like,
oh my God.
I mean, multiple people broke the previous record.
Like it's crazy.
Yeah. And so it
like,
gave...
Do you know how many people broke the record?
I meant to
look this up, actually.
I want to say it might have been 3 people. I think top 3 all beat it. But there was definitely a point where it's like even top 5 was ahead of the record.
Yeah.
There was another pod I was listening to where Justinus was on it for a minute, and he's like, I had to stop looking at the dots. He's like, I looked so slow because it had his record dot on there. He's like, I would get the updates occasionally, but I had to stop looking.
Oh, that had to be hard. Yeah.
And then I heard like he had a voice. He's like, Josh Ibbett does the daily recaps for quite some time, which are amazing. And there's like a voice note from Justinus where he's like, yeah, you know, I see what's happening, Robin, and let me just say, training for Tour Divide 2026 has begun.
I love that.
Which is super cool.
Yeah.
And so, it was like, finish the route, win single speed category, record would be super sick. And then I was like, if I'm on pace to be doing a record or thereabouts of record, then I also think that should put me in like top 10. So top 10 was the other. I was like, top 10 would be super cool.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like
your 8th for, in case y'all haven't Googled it yet, he got 8th place.
Ninth place.
9th place. Yep. Oh, sorry. Dirty Dan was the first American in 8th place, and you were 9th place,
so
second
right
American.
Dirty Dan, which we shared miles out there together and stuff and talked. And I was like really stoked to see him go on and have the finish he did and get
especially
8th.
After last year.
Yeah, man. And then like he faced so much adversity this year.
He had the saddle and the crash.
Yeah, the crash.
The crash first.
Lost consciousness.
I know.
And I was like, man, do you really need to be doing this right now? And he had a fresh helmet and just the perseverance. And he's done it. I think that's like his 5th completion, maybe.
Something, like that.
So I was like, when you're that deep in it, at least for me, I'm just like, I'm stoked for other people's accomplishments. So I was like, go get it, Dan. Like, I was really hyped for that.
Especially he's on a geared bike, so you're like, go ahead.
So those were the goals going into it, and yeah, otherwise like the plan was do what I needed to do to accomplish those goals.
So one thing I wanted to ask you is about it's crazy kind of, not really. It's actually not that crazy. I mean, it's kind of what you do. You go from a 700 mile, like you do north south, that's 500 something miles.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're doing more by orders of magnitude, and you're setting goals that are ambitious, good goals.
Yeah.
How confident were you? How confident were you?
I got to do a fair bit of riding with Jacob Lose and Alex Kowalski, who are both veterans of the Divide, both single speeders. Been able to ride with them a fair bit, kind of get some wisdom dumped in from them, plus just like see their riding style, their strengths and weaknesses. So that helped give me some reference from like, here's some immediate people around me that have done this, and like, here's some times, and they've dealt with their own adversity on the Divide, where it's like neither one of them would be like, oh yeah, it was a perfect run. So it's like, okay, you get their time and that immediately they could have gone faster. So that gives you like a little bit of an idea. I track my training quite a bit as far as power data and TSS, and try to be really intentional for the most part with gaining fitness. And so just like seeing the numbers I was seeing, and then I tried to dig in with Plesko as much as I could of like any insight of what kind of training he was doing. He had a blog for a little bit.
Yeah,
I was even super excited. There's a blog where he even put like his power output on some hill repeats, and I was like, no way, this is like very specific data. And I just don't care enough to like, I wish I cared more to like write more about my training. Like, right. I'm not scared to share any of it, but I just don't put in the extra effort like he did. And then I was like, what does this guy look like? So I look at him like, he looks pretty tall. So like, he probably weighs a little bit more than me. And I'm like doing watts per kilo in my head and stuff. And so I was like, okay, this wasn't like a former world tour rider that has transitioned to bike packing. This is like, this is a really strong rider. Like there's no denying, like he was a super strong rider. And then it's like, oh, he's also like a sponsored athlete. So it wasn't, someone that's just getting after it on the weekends. It's like, this is a dedicated racer.
But at the time he set the record. Well, he set it in 2009, and then he took it back from Hefe Branham in 2016. What was it? I interviewed him too for the podcast. And
Hefe or Chris?
Both of them.
No shit.
Yeah.
Man, I wish I listened to the Chris one. I don't know if I've listened to that.
Yeah. I interviewed him and Marnie, his wife, because they were the first couple to tandem the Tour Divide.
Okay.
And I honestly have to admit, I didn't even know he had the single speed record. Whenever I was watching the tandems, I just bought a tandem. I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he had 2 kids, and he was like busy with work and family man and all that stuff. And he didn't go in as prepared as he would have liked to go into prepared. But that was the year Mike Hall, he came in second overall second to Mike Hall, set the record.
Yeah. Super amazing. Like he had a really good run, and it was like, I was able to see enough that he was very intentional with his effort. At least it wasn't one of those where he just went out there, and it definitely wasn't his rookie run. Anyone that wants to go back to that route, it kind of blows me away. It's just
really,
that's so much time to be out there, to be so focused, and so much can go wrong to just go up there and line up again. Hats off to anyone that does it more than once. I have so much more respect for that now than I did before.
That's so interesting. Are you like right now, do you think that you'll go back? Because I was going to ask you this question much later, but you just brought it up. So
I think it'd be several years, and I'd be on a geared bike. I really like the idea of, if I'm going to commit so much time to something and invest myself so deeply mentally and physically, I would rather have like a new experience first. Like find something bizarre out in Nepal that's never been done on a bike, or I don't know, like some really cool expedition style objective, how Chris Picard's done, like crossing Iceland. Like I would be more drawn to doing
And we
what
were
feels like a
talking
new
about
expedition.
Pace and McKelvin, across
like New Zealand.
New Zealand, yeah.
So I think I would be very drawn to doing a new expedition first, just because that's so much time, and give it a bunch of years to like rebuild the obsession. I think that's something people talk about. Is I've heard the quote once or twice where it's like, well, how long did it take you to go back? Is like, well, it took me the number of years to forget about it to where I like had to or whatever, you know?
And speaking of Chris Plesko, like he set the record in 2009. And if I remember correctly from his blog, he said something like, I'll go back whenever someone beats my record and there's a reason to go back. And then nice. Hefe Branham took his record. He's like, all right, I'm going
there
back.
You go. Yep. Yeah. So
one of the things that I thought, and you've referenced it a couple times, but one thing that I took note of was, in my mind, I'm thinking about you and I'm like, Andrew is locked in to this experience. No social media. I mean, you made a post before and you're like, I'm going to go do this thing.
Yeah.
But zero, if I'm correct, zero social media during the time.
Yeah.
Sent you a couple messages during it, but I'm like, this guy is like fucking locked in.
Yeah.
He's riding his bike. Talk about what it takes to mentally transition from a world of everything, right?
Yep.
Everything we have right now to, I'm going to go ride 16 hours a day. I'm going to sleep X number of hours a night. And I'm going to do that for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And be locked into that mentality.
Yeah. I think in a very strange way, working Unbound was like one of the best gifts and preparations possible for it.
Okay.
Because it was the most intense, nonstop, like firing on all cylinders for that event, just like executing everything possible, and like the variables that come in, and just the sheer number of like staff and volunteers that you're coordinating with day in and day out. And then as you get closer to actual event day, then you're diving into sleep deprivation. It's the XL starts on Friday, and then like I basically don't sleep until Sunday at 5 a.m. or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like on your feet and moving around. And so that whole event was just absolutely firing on all cylinders, phone constantly going off, radio constantly going off. It was like this hard switch of, I'm about to go do like the biggest bike ride I've done in my entire life. And that's like the only thing that's happening. And so it was just a full leaning into the only thing that matters in this world is this bike ride right now. You know, like bar, I hear that someone in my family died, or like, you know, something absolutely unforeseen comes up towards like, okay, you can't just only care about your bike ride. I was like, I'm leaning into, this is the only thing that exists for a while. And, you know, talking about it with friends and stuff, or even Sean, they're just like, this is insane. What you're about to do is insane. And you're just like, yeah, it is. And you just like lean into it. You're like, yeah, this is about to be something that, especially as a rookie, you're like, I can't comprehend. I'm not going to try to comprehend it. And here we go.
Yeah. But was there anything you actually did to like make that mental switch, or did it happen just naturally?
I think, you know, you mentioned no social media. I planned on that before, not like loosely. I'd say like, I was pretty sure I wasn't going to open up social media. I was like, maybe I'll do some updates here and there. But as it got closer, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to open up Instagram once the whole time.
Okay.
I didn't open up Instagram the entire time. And part of it was like this Tour Divide thing that I'm about to do. It's like I'm in this nice little Tour Divide snow globe, and I have this like glass around me. And the second I open up Instagram,
it goes away.
The glass is going to shatter.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to just exist in this snow globe.
Yeah.
Like, it was a dry year. We didn't really deal with snow at all, but like, that's the best way I can describe it or think about it. And even with my phone, I had my phone on airplane mode almost the whole time. I shot the occasional selfie to Taylor. I think I only sent her like 4 total. like one was crossing the border. She's like, can you please just let me know that you get across the border, okay?
That's a fair question.
I was like, well, you'll see my dot get across the border. And she's like, Andrew, listen here, dude.
So
that's funny. I was like, to me, I'm like, you'll see the dot. Like, obviously the dot's going to like keep going or we'll be stuck at the border. But like, she was amazing where she's like, I know he's about to just like lock the fuck in. And like, we feel the same about each other, like as we do. Like it's just like, this is a very in tune moment I'm about to have that just happens to last for a long time. And what I wasn't expecting was not to take photos altogether.
Oh,
so
really?
I took no photos day one, and it wasn't necessarily intentional. I was just like riding my bike and occasionally talking to people, and just didn't really. The first day I saw a fair bit of it touring in, so I actually got dropped off at the border and rode to Banff from the border of Montana and Canada.
I was going to ask you about that, yeah.
Which was really
fun. From Montana to Canada, how many miles?
We made it like 200 miles. I shared the first couple of days with Nate Griffey, another Arkansas single speeder. And then I did like a bigger final day, like 100 miles, because my dropper post was acting up. And I was like, I should just get to a shop. And Alex Kowalski dropped us off. He drove us from Colorado. But yeah, so like I had seen some of that day one, and I took some photos already. And I even thought about it when I was taking photos on the tour. I was like, this is like, I can stop whenever I want. I'm touring. Like, here's like, I'll even like readjust for the shot or change my crank set to where it's even, that kind of stuff. And then, so day one, I was like, this is amazing. This is beautiful. I'm enjoying the views. I'm like, I already took a photo of this area. I'm like, I don't need another photo. And, next thing I know, it's, we're at the resupply in Fernie, and I see a couple people sitting on the curb, and they have their Instagram open, and they're like scrolling and looking at stories. And I glance at them for a second, and then I just like walk inside and I start doing my thing. And I was like, I don't know. I don't feel like opening my phone right now. And I talked to a couple locals. We're just like stoked and asking questions, like asking about my bike and just chatting it up. And I was like, oh yeah, we like top 20 right now. They're like, oh, for sure, you're top 20. You guys are doing great. And the first photo I took was crossing the border, sent a photo to Taylor. And I took like another selfie the next day. That was like my only text for the day to Taylor. Is just like, I'm alive, I'm riding my bike. And then
I'm alive, I'm riding my bike.
Next thing I know, it was like the next day I'm riding with Jacob Ora for a little bit, and we're chatting. And Jacob's rad. I would love to talk about him more here in a little bit. But he mentioned that he was like dumping some photos and video clips off to a friend, and they're making reels and stuff at the end of each day. I'm like, this is sick, dude. I'm like, I love that. And he's like, somehow we got on the topic of social media, and I was like, I'm not going to open it at all. And he's like, you're going to miss my reels. And he's just joking. Like, we're just shooting the shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll catch up afterwards. And he's like, all right. And then I said something about photos, and I had been taking no photos. He's like, what? He's like, that's kind of badass. And I think that's the moment that solidified it. I was like, I'm taking no photos this whole ride. So it was like day 3 where I was like, I'm not going to take any photos.
You didn't take any?
And no.
Holy shit.
So
that is fucking heavy metal.
He was like, he's like, well, when people ask you what it's like or what does it look like or different sections, all you can say is you just have to go ride it. And I was like, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. But that perfectly like puts a point on what I was saying. Is like, that was my impression. I don't know. You didn't put anything out on social media.
Yeah.
So coming into this conversation right now, I had no idea, but me knowing you the way that I do. And I'm like, Andrew's fucking locked in. Like he's just like shut out the world. Yeah. And he's fucking going.
And the fun thing about it wasn't in this super intense way. Day one, it might have kind of seemed that way to like to the few people, especially like at that resupply in Fernie. Like, I did not sit down. I was grabbing shit, and I stopped at McDonald's first. Like, Lael and I were the only two that went to McDonald's out of like that top 10, at least that were there at the time. And I put a bunch of stuff in a little backpack, I didn't wear a vest or a backpack the whole ride, but I like put some in my backpack, and then I went to the gas station, and then I did my resupply, and I was eating some cheeseburgers and stuff as I was like going through my stuff for the resupply, and then the rest ended up in bags. But yeah, just like real efficient there. Like I still talked to everybody. I was like friendly, but I was not like about to like pull out my phone and start like scrolling around. So I was like, day one, I had it pulled up.
Yeah, I wanted to ask because you were kind of chuckling about it before we started recording. You're like, I think you said something like we were hauling ass on day one.
So day one, it was like a pretty high average mile per hour. I think the riding style just suited me really well, especially single speed, a lot of up and down and single track and stuff. But the one thing I noticed that I laughed when I pulled it up was the stoppage time. So my moving time for the day was 17 hours, 39 minutes, and 15 seconds. And my elapsed time was 18 hours, 29 minutes, and 48 seconds. So I stopped for less than an hour over the course of 18 and a half hours on day one.
Wow.
Which was like, that was the goal, is to be really efficient and keep moving. But yeah, the locked in was kind of accidental in a way, but also intentional. And I was definitely not planning on the no photo thing. And it wasn't this super intense thing of like, I'm going to be the strictest to the rules or like the origin of it or whatever. It was just, it felt right and I rolled with it. And it was amazing. It was very rarely that I even thought about taking a photo or a video after a while. And like every time I thought about it, I was like, can this capture this moment any better than what you're seeing with your eyes right now? And I was like, no. And I was like, just keep staring at what you're seeing right now. So that was kind of how it was. It was very emotional and like spiritual at times. It was just, I took four selfies and then I took one photo of the inside of a Taco Bell, and that was my entire 15 days.
I actually do relate to that because like as a person on the internet, I feel an obligation to like tell what I'm doing like on the bike, but it's really hard for me to create content whenever I'm going on a bikepacking trip or, doing something like I prefer to just be wholly in the moment. Like life is hard and challenging and chaotic. And like, it really is nice and it's very selfish. Everybody knows bikepacking is a selfish sport. Yeah. But it sounds like you're like, I'm going to take all of this in. Yeah. And taking photos is cool. Like you can look at them later, but like in the moment,
I just wanted to squeeze every single drop out of the Tour Divide that I could. Yeah. And then I love the people that took photos and videos. I even like would talk to someone doing a video. Like I'll be in your video and like I hope I see it one day.
Yeah, you were
like,
in Jay Peterberry's photo or videos.
And so,
that was cool to see.
And I love that. And now
I could tell you're doing well. I was like, all right, oh yeah, he's fucking killing it.
This past week, I've been watching a bunch of different video clips and looking at people's photos, and I'm like, I'm so stoked that they took video and photos. So I'm definitely not anti.
Speaking of Jay O'Hara, he did an excellent job. Like I would love to chat with him. Yeah. He's been on the podcast too before, but yeah, he was like slaying it on the social media. Yep. I appreciate both. Like I was like, I really respected your approach. I was like, no fucking social media. I'm locked in. Yeah. I'm going.
Well, it was awesome. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And
what about track leaders?
I looked at track leaders quite a bit. That was like one of the only ways I was on the internet. Was like, if I'm in a long pocket of no service and then I'm in service getting ready to get to a resupply, sometimes it'd be popping up Google Maps and checking my resupply options. Like, okay, what I actually have here? Is there like fast food and gas station, or is it only gas station? And then pull up track leaders. Is like kind of a combo of seeing how the race overall was shaking out. But then after a while, it got very laser focused on like Chris Plesko's dot. Yeah. It became almost like obsessive on his dot after a while. And then
I think all of us
there was a point where I no longer looked at anybody but him. Right. And I was like, I don't care what's happening in the race. I was like, I need to do what I need to do to try to be ahead of that dot.
Yeah, that's all that matters. Yeah. That's the question I wanted to ask you. All right, let's pause. I have to pee like a motherfucker. Okay. Yeah. But Cool.
That works for me. I'll do it too.
So obviously, like, Chris Plesko's record was on your mind. You're aware of it. At what moment did you like clue into the fact that you were in the conversation?
I wish I was watching track leaders more intently early on, because I think they just drop the dot in after a few days. Like, I don't think the dot's there day one.
Right.
I don't know. Taylor, did you notice a day where I think they get a few days in, maybe 2 or 3 days in, and then they pop up the historic dots?
I noticed that too.
And so, yeah, first couple days, it's like, well, it's not even there. And also it's just like, there's so many people. And I didn't look at track leaders on day one at all. I think I looked at it when I crossed the border on day 2, like the US-Canada border. But I mean, it had to have been pretty early on. It had to have been at least by day 4. I think it was on my radar, and then I was like, that's who I'm racing. I didn't know the whole single speed field. And to be honest, even going into it with the single speed field, it was in the back of my head like, well, the only reason I'm going to be looking at what you're doing is if you're on record pace. It's like, if you're not trying to beat the record, then I already know I don't need to be looking at what you're doing, because that's not the wrong dot to be looking at. And so, yeah, day 4, when I think I was looking at it a little bit more frequently and I was in the rhythm and it was there, that's when I started looking, and I knew I was within striking distance already. And I was doing like pretty well in the race overall too. So I was like, okay, I'm up towards the front. Conditions have been working out. There's the dot, and I was like, let's make it happen.
Let's go.
So yeah.
Now we're racing.
There were several times where even other racers were kind of like asking about like, well, what do you think other people are doing around us? Or like, what's your plan? And I was very blunt early on. I was like, I'm staring at Chris Plesko's dot, and that is my goal. And so when I'm in New Mexico, maybe I'll start thinking more about what other people around me are doing, but I need to like really hone in on this. And part of it's because you truly are playing a little bit of a different game. So there's certain sections where it's just guaranteed other people are going to get away from you.
You can't compare.
It's flatter terrain, rolling pavement, whatever it is. You're going to lose so much time in some sections if someone's even like moderately efficient. So it's like, okay, well, how did the single speeder shake out in this section? Yeah. So it naturally is like, the more mountainous it was and more vert, I would move forward in the overall field, and I'd even like gain time on Plesko. And then the more it was rolling and flatter, then either I was like trying to catch up to him or he was gaining on me, type of thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about Chris Plesko. Let's talk about the FKT. First, I had a question about your time. So Chris Plesko's time, 15 days, 8 hours, 4 minutes in 2016. Your time, I saw 2 different numbers: 15 days, 11 hours, and 15 days, 10 hours.
15 days, 11 hours, 15 minutes.
11 hours and 15 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah. So technically 3 hours.
3 hours
and 11 minutes.
11 minutes.
Yeah, is exactly what it is.
Yep.
There's an interesting conversation around FKTs, I feel like, that comes up periodically, because like with the Tour Divide in particular, route changes. There was a fire detour this year. There's frequently detours, but we watched your dot, if anybody was watching, and we're all doing the same thing you're doing. We're watching your dot and Chris Plesko's dot. And for the majority of the race, you are ahead of Chris's dot. I went to Columbia. I was like glued to the dots for the first 7 days of the Tour Divide, and then I went to Columbia, and I missed. I was checking it when I could.
Yep.
But I was actually like legitimately sad. I wanted to watch the end. I remember when you were in like Silver City, and then I would like watch until you got to Hachita.
Yep.
And then I missed like the very, very end of the Tour Divide from the dot watcher perspective. But from what I understand, you were ahead of his dot, and then all of a sudden it like you were behind his dot, and everybody thought you were like sleeping or slowed down or something like that.
And of course, I'm not posting anything. So.
Yeah, you're not posting shit.
Yeah.
So there's lots to talk about here, but yeah, like what happened first with the track leaders, and let's just like clear the air and.
Oh yeah, so like, I had like my 4 goals of finish the route, win single speed, contend the record, and then top 10. And so if I didn't plan much for the route in general, as far as like where I'm trying to get each day, or even like look enough into the resupplies and everything, which is like, I don't blame anybody for that. And like, I don't necessarily say that's entirely stupid thing to do, because it obviously didn't work out too badly, but it's also not advisable. But I obviously didn't do a lot of research in the the differences between 2016 and 2025.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like the records have been going down in general. Like Mike Hall's record got beaten, and then it's been getting dropped. And so I was like, okay, like they're dropping the overall record. So it's like, I didn't think much about like, well, let's get nitty gritty on what are the differences.
Okay. Yeah.
And when you get specifically into single speed and something that's been around since 2016, that's when there's more nuances to it. And I started doing more research afterwards, just because after a while, it was like I was pouring my heart and soul into beating this dot. Like that was my sole purpose in life for many days, and I wasn't connecting to the outside world, but I was starting to download. Josh Ibbett does his daily recap on Ultrascape, which I thought was super sick. And like, that's how I learned about a little bit more of like what's happening in the race. So it's like, It felt like a way to connect to other racers. Like I get to hear about Sven talking about this over here, and like even the tidbits from Robin, and here's an Instagram story that Dirty Dan shared, is like this really cool way to like, I got to tap into my world a little bit. And then Josh starts talking about like, he's on track for the record. And I'm like, that's cool. Yeah, that's me. That's what I'm doing. And it was like motivating. It's
super interesting.
That was like my only
like you can be in the thing, doing the thing, and listening to like what's happening in your world.
It makes me think about how they used to do the call-ins.
MTB cast.
Exactly. Yeah. And so like, I thought it was cool. It's like it was like a modern version of it. Like Lael was throwing in clips, and like, a lot of the people were. And so several days in a row, it's kind of talking about like, well, Andrew's leading the single speed charge. He's also right there in contention with the record. And that like, it kept me super motivated. I had times where, honestly, I was like, if I was just trying to duke it out between 6th to 10th place right now, I'd be less motivated. Like the fact that I have this goal within it, like this single speed record was keeping me super honest and like engaged. Cause like once you're off the extended podium of top 5, like it's almost like generic. It's like, you got top 10, you got top 20, it's like, no one understands like just how deep someone has to go to be like, hey, no, I actually ended up being 7th place instead of 8th place, or I ended up being 9th instead of 10th, or whatever. Like, unless you're in it or you've done it, it's kind of hard to comprehend what that other 9 hours meant or whatever. Yeah. And so, getting laser focused on the dot, and I'm getting closer to the end, and I'm gaining a lead. I had a moment where, so Matthew Lee, who's like the unofficial race director of the Tour Divide. Over the last few years, I've talked to him on the phone a ton, through like Doom, like us running through dots together and trying to figure out some problems with Unbound XL, maybe a little bit with the High Country, but definitely with like Unbound XL and Doom, ton of time calling. And if he does listen to this, I don't know if he listens to this stuff or not, but he'll totally agree that half the time it's like an important phone call, and the first 45 minutes we talk about nothing that's important. We're talking about bike packing, and like maybe we're on a tangent about talking about the Tour Divide itself and like his experiences, or like advice, or like we just talk about so much stuff. And like I resonate with Matthew Lee a lot, and I've seen Ride the Divide, and he texted me on day one, and he was one of the only texts I replied to on day one. And he shot me a text and said, fuck, I'm going to pull it up because I don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah.
But it was something along the lines of like, are you having fun yet?
Also, if he texts you, you text back. I would.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things where it's like he's not interfering. It's like we're friends, and like it's just like a genuine, very quick, easy, calm like question. Scrolling back because we ended up actually having a fun bit of talking. So yeah, just having fun yet? ? This was June 13th at 9:51 p.m. is when I received it, at least. And I hearted it, and I texted back, "This shit is amazing," and then turned my phone back on airplane mode. And then not until the next day I saw, "Welcome to opening day, enjoy," ! And then #long game.
Long game.
So I'm riding the route, and like I'm getting more laser focused on the dot and everything. And then I start thinking about differences in the route. And then there's the conversation about, Jay was the first one that even put it on my radar. Jay mentioned, "Oh, it's a shame about the fires in New Mexico." It's like, Robin's killing it right now, and he might get robbed of the record because of the fires. And I'm like, oh shit. Like,
so what day was this?
That's when I was like getting, you passed through Idaho for just a little bit. Yeah. Maybe like day 4 or 5. Okay. Awesome moment with Jay, like been able to talk to Jay some over the years. And he was there at the end of this kind of gross section of weird double track that's sandy and super slow. Like you eventually get by the river and it's beautiful, but like you're going so slow for so long. You're like, surely this isn't going to be the next 12 miles is exactly this. And then what do you know? It's 12 miles of like, I can't sit down in the saddle. I have to like be standing up basically. And I'm going like 8 miles an hour and super frustrated.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just like talking about all kinds of stuff. And he mentions the fires and I'm like, damn, that sounds like that affects my ride too. And I'm also chasing a record.
Yeah.
And like in that moment, I was like, don't think too much of it. Like, because like what you don't want to be is like, oh man, I can't get the record now. I don't even want to try. Like, it's like I've been enjoying trying hard. I've tried hard up to this point. It's still a race. It's like at the end of the day, it's still a race. This year is relevant. You're living in this year. Like this is the moment. And so I didn't think much of it. I was like, oh, maybe it won't even be a thing. And as we got closer, Matthew texted a little bit more, and I want to find where it says, he ended up just texting the reroute. He said, "I sent scouts in there yesterday. Trail looks great. I provided the pics to the Forest Service, and they're still saying hard no and citing flooding as the reason now. I'm going to keep trying to make it happen, though." So it's like he was hoping I could go through the normal route, and not do the reroute. He's like, and like for really everybody, but it's just like the first few people, like if you're top 10, top 15, like you're just the people getting there first. And so it's more case by case. It's like, hey, maybe this will get lifted and everybody else gets to ride through it.
Right.
And he knew at that point I was like pretty invested in trying to get the record, the FKT. And that's when he sent me that, and I had a moment. I was like, did Plesko do Coco claims or the CDT sections? And he just said, nope. And then so I started kind of like thinking about it more, and it's just like lack of research on the front end. It's, but yeah, you like kind of ask people questions or you think about it more, and then you realize, okay, this route has shifted. Even on bikepacking.com, they mentioned some changes for this year specifically. And so the specific changes for this year was right before Steamboat Springs, instead of going up Sand Mountain, you do 10 miles more of off-road riding essentially to bypass what's like 15 miles of pavement down into Steamboat Springs. And one of the reasons for it, or the reason for it, was in 2010, a motorist, which I wrote down his name because I didn't want to just like gloss over that like it was nothing. There's a motorist. This is Dave Blumenthal was hit and killed by motorists in 2010 on that section. But is 2025, they decided it was the year, hey, let's do a reroute here. And so they do a reroute, which added 10 miles. So I was like, in my head, I'm like, oh, this is 10 miles longer already. And this is off-road riding as well. Like, this isn't easy. And then I saw Dan in a moment. He's like, dude, that reroute was hard, man. He's like, we used to cruise over the mountain, and then there's this awesome resupply before Steamboat. And I was like, oh, okay, so that wasn't like a slouch reroute. Right. We did more distance, and it was not easy. I was like, okay. But even rewinding back, I was like, Coco Claims. Oh, yeah, Coco Claims is kind of like a newer thing. And so I started doing a little bit of research on that. This is more so post-ride, but like during the ride, I was like doing this math in my head. And what was said is it adds upwards of 4 extra hours, the way they go up into this gnarly hike bike. Like anyone that's done it, you just go through boulder fields, and some people bring shoes just to like throw away or mail off afterwards of like Coco Claims basically by the time they get to the border. But I even like looked on Strava out of curiosity, and someone made a segment called Coco Claims Brute. And it's really only the initial uphill portion of it. It's not all the other stuff, but it's 5.25 miles. You gain 3,000 feet of vert. The average grade is 8.7% for 5.25 miles.
Over boulders.
Over boulders. You know, sometime like early on, you can ride it for a while. But you go from 4,000 feet, 4,310 feet to 6,709 feet. And that key section of it, which I think is like basically the main climb of it before you get up onto a ridge for a while and you ultimately start descending and stuff. Yeah, I looked at it, and the KOM on it, like for those that use Strava and stuff, was 1 hour and 28 minutes and 58 seconds. So that's just the up portion.
For
and they're
5.2.5 miles.
5.25 miles. So they're like going all out, like going hard. It takes them 1.5 hours basically. And that didn't exist on the route before. And then fun fact, I actually... I'm 13th overall this year on it. So like
solid on
wasn't slouching.
Yeah.
I saw Robin doesn't have his ride on Strava. So there's like some people that didn't record it or whatever, but like some of this goes years past. My time was 1:28:58. The fastest was 1:15:11. I stopped. I was burning up hot. I took my pants off and put some shorts on. So I was like, oh man, I would have been top 10 if I didn't take my pants off and put some shorts on.
If I would have known.
But yeah, so that's like, okay, there's Coco Claims that didn't exist. And then, or existed, it wasn't taken. And then here's this reroute at Steamboat. And then I was like, I'm going to hone in on this a little bit more. So there's this new section of CDT when you first get into New Mexico that wasn't ridden back then. And it's section 30 of the CDT. It goes from the Lagunitas campground to Hopewell Lake or thereabouts. It's around 19 miles, and it's mostly single track with some double track connectors. I hit it in the dark. It was insanely slow. I got lost so many times. It's like some faint trail. There's areas where it's cows make their own trails, and so it's very hard route finding. And I, of course, was just like an idiot and didn't really plan ahead for it, and I like underestimated it. And I was on it for hours, and I ran out of food and water. Like I had a little bit of food left, but I was like, I need to save one thing to eat for dinner when I eventually stop, and I need to have one thing for breakfast when I wake up, because my metabolism is going to be firing off in the morning. So like I need something to end the day with to try to recuperate a little bit. So I had a honey stinger for dinner after it, and I had a Pop-Tarts for breakfast.
Welcome to the Tour Divide.
And then leaving Silver City. So routes are basically the same for a long time. And then leaving Silver City, they incorporated...
But coming into Silver City is where the reroute was, right? Fire detour.
We're glazing over. So there's actual fire detour that happened. And so I dug in on the math of that. And right around Pie Town, I was riding with Dan for a little bit. And he's done it so many times. I was like, hey, man, tell me about this detour. Like, I was excited to go into the Gila. Like, I always hear cool things about the Gila and how how tough it is. And of course, everything we've been doing so far is tough in New Mexico. But I've heard about this, and he's like, dude, the detour is hard, man. He's like, I think the detour is even harder. He's like, I did it in 2022, I think is what he said. And he's like, I think it's harder. And I was like, well, shit, man, that's not what I wanted to hear. And so I looked it up after the race, and it was hard. Like, there's definitely nothing about the detour. I'm like, oh man, we got a nice little ticket here. Like, it was 119 miles with 9,220 feet of vert.
Damn.
And 10,873 feet of loss. And then the OG route was 106 miles, 106.7, with 9,135 feet of elevation gain and 10,824 feet of loss. So
even by the numbers,
our reroute was almost 13 miles longer. Now, granted, it didn't include 6 miles of CDT that existed on the original. So we could like call it a wash. Maybe it's like, okay, all said and done, the detour is like basically a wash.
Yeah.
It's not like really advantageous one way or another. So I took those notes down, and then at the very end, it's leaving Silver City. This year we had to do some single track, like 1.5 miles, 2 miles of single track, which I hit in the dark, and I got lost a few times. But then we did this alternate that swoops out further east that incorporates more unpaved surfaces and some road. And like, I was like, oh, curious. Cause you're talking about checking track leaders. As I'm like getting to Silver City, I'm really, really focusing in. I'm like, holy shit, dude, this is like the home stretch. And like, he's still in the Gila and I'm pulling into Silver City. I'm like, this is looking good. I'm like, I was so stoked, but I kept doing the math. I was like, okay, I'm finishing tomorrow or later today is like around 11 or midnight or whatever. It's like he finishes 8 hours into what's considered day 15, and I have X number of miles left, and that average seems high. I'm like, I don't think I can do that. It's like, what is it? A bunch of downhill that I'm not expecting? Like, so I was like, well, I'm not gonna think about it too much now. Like, I'm ahead of his dot. I just got to stay ahead of his dot. That's all I got to do.
Yeah.
And so get through the single track, get lost a few times. I end up like crossing a creek in a weird spot that there's probably a better spot, but I got my feet soaking wet and I was like, damn it, like I didn't mean to do this. And I'm on highway again in their service, and I see him just cruising on the highway after I did like all this unroad, like unpaved surfaces, and like got to it. And I was like, oh no, like they cruise pavement after Silver City.
Oh, right.
And so I looked that up, and it was 21 miles the way we left after Silver City, 21 miles, like over 1,000 feet of vert. And theirs to reconnect to where we rejoined was 10 miles of all pavement. So 11 miles shorter, plus it was all pavement, and it was a little under 1,000 feet of vert. So like, okay, well that makes a big difference. And so he closed the gap in that zone, like after Silver City, and then the routes stayed the same for a while. So he's closing the gap, and then I'm at this resupply. I missed Silver City. The way you come in from the Gila, you actually go by this 24/7 gas station, but the way we came in from the detour, it's like 2.5 miles off route. And I was like, I'm not going to go 2.5 miles one way for this resupply. I'm just going to run it out, whatever. And like, so
that's why you're thirsty.
I didn't want to add 5 miles to the route. I was like, this is go time. I'm trying to.
Chris didn't add 5 miles to his route.
So I was like, I'm not doing that. It just doesn't make sense. And the Denny's was the other option. I'm like, Denny's is going to be slow as hell. Like, even if there's nobody there, that's not a fast resupply. And so yeah, I pull up the track leaders and I'm like, oh no, I didn't know about the fact that they only did pavement after Silver City in this section. So then I'm like, the math is adding up more. I'm like, that's when I had the moment. I'm like, I don't even think this is possible at this point. And then I get to the one more resupply, and I'm there, and I'm like not rushing anything. I'm like collected. I'm like doing my thing, and that's when I'm looking at the math some more, and I look at the distance plus the CDT at the end. I was like, I'm not going to beat him. I was like, I can go all out from here to the finish, like absolutely murder myself, and I still am going to lose to him. So it was like this weird moment at my final resupply where I was like, I lost it. And it was like, I was still ahead of his dot at that time, which was like the hardest part. It was like, I'm at this resupply, I'm ahead of him.
So you knew
and
before.
I'm like accepting defeat. And I was like, okay, I'm also not going to catch Dirty Dan. And Benjamin's just far enough behind me where I'm like, I need to stay efficient, but I'm not going to lose a place unless I just like really stop a lot. And so at the resupply, I like kind of take my time, and actually, I've been needing to buy a belt for the longest time because my shorts were just falling off my ass. And I bought like a $12 belt, and I was like, hey, man, my shorts are going to be right where I want them to be for the home stretch.
Yeah.
And
if I don't have anything else, I got a belt.
I was about to leave, and I was like, you know what? I should probably just take a shit too. I was like, I'll take a shit. So I go in there, and of course, there's only one toilet, and there's a guy sitting there. And I'm like, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. I'll wait. So I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, and I'm like, oh my God. And then finally he's about to leave, and it's not flushing. He tries flushing, and then
oh my God.
I'm like, I think this dude just clogged it up. And he comes out of the restroom, and I'm like, hey man, is that clogged right now? And he's like, yeah. I was like, dude, you got to unclog that. Like, that's you. And so he tries for a little bit, and it's not working. And he's like, I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm not going to keep trying. I was like,
shit.
I was like, damn it.
Shit, literally.
And it wasn't refilling with water because they're on a septic, which I later learned. And then I really had to go at that point. So I took a shit on top of his shit, and I felt so bad. And I couldn't do anything about it. And I went to the front, and they knew me at this point because I was in and out a few times. And I was like, I'm so sorry to tell you, your toilet, it's not refilling with water very well. They're like, we know. They're like, yeah.
Not the first
they're like,
time.
hey, thank you for telling us and letting us know. And I was like, thank you guys so much. I'm so sorry. And then I rolled out. And in that moment, I think that's when like Plesko's dot was catching up to me. And I was like, okay, here's like the next stretch to Hashida. And like he had a little bit of harder gearing, and like, things being at different times. It was like updated 9 minutes ago, updated 3 minutes ago. And it's like, well, they look close, but that was 9 minutes ago. This is 3 minutes ago. Where are they really at? And long story short, it's like we show up to Hashida theoretically at the same time.
Okay.
And that's when I had to turn right and go towards the CDT. And that's when he turned left and rode pavement to the finish.
Oh.
And I was just like, man, to like ride for 15 days and some change. And it like comes down to this moment where like I literally don't have a fighting chance. It was like at that point I had already accepted it. Like I knew that's what was about to happen. And I even had like one friend text me. They're like, it's the last 10% where you got to dig the deepest. And like, I just like, hey, I'm at peace. Like, I really appreciate it. There's so many people I hadn't replied to, but like that one just came in recently, and it was like, I'm at peace. And I think I just needed to type it out. I was like, I'm at peace. I had a hell of a ride. He had a hell of a ride also, and it was a different ride from mine. And it's like, I just have to accept that. And the CDT ended up being hard. It was like, it was work, and like you're in the sun and it's hot. And I think the notes I have for that it's section 2 of the CDT. It's from Highway 9 to Highway 81 or vice versa. It's 16.5 miles with a lot of single track and then some double track and unpaved roads. And I even looked at like an older comment from like a year prior or whatever of someone saying like their notes about it. And they're like, last few miles, there wasn't really a visible path, just signposts barely within sight and a sea of cacti and other pointy plants in between.
Yeah. I remember I talked to Ustinis about his tour divide, his FKT.
Yeah.
He had a difficult time navigating in that section of the CDT.
And so it's like even the stuff you could see, it's like, it's just super slow going terrain. And you're like, you're working hard. And so it's like, I definitely let off the gas a little bit. And then in the last 30 miles of pavement, I was so tired that I had to take a nap. I took like a 3 or 4 minute nap.
Oh, yeah.
And then after that, I was fighting so hard to stay awake that I was like fidgeting with anything I could on the bike. I'd like brush my teeth. I'd put on sunscreen on my nose. I tried taking notes on my phone, but the sun was too bright, so I couldn't see my phone. Yeah. And then it's like when you're younger and you get the spins and you have to have your face on one side of the pillow, and then you got to change your face to the other side of the pillow. I was like doing that to try to stay awake, and it was so hard. I was like so gone, and to be like 3 hours and some change behind. And yeah, there's some people that are just like in Josh's podcast, he's like, oh, it looks like Andrew drifted off there at the end, like gave the record a real good fight. But it's like, when you look back, you're like, how hard I worked to like gain the lead on that dot was like, there's so much extra that I did to gain that lead. And then it all came down to like, basically at Hashida, like all the extra hours and work I put in, we were evenly matched at that point. And then at that point I had no chance. And so it was just like, it was pretty heartbreaking. And just like knowing the way the Tour Divide runs and everything, I was just like, this is going to just be like one of those things where like, I'm so proud of what I did in top 10. And it was like overall a phenomenal run, but I just know like I got so obsessed with that dot for a while. And like, even when my call-ins to Josh Ibbett, I was like, man, I'm getting stoked chasing this dot. Like, this is all that I care about right now. And then friends cheering me on. And then it's just like this anticlimactic where it's just like, you just got like passed like it was nothing at the very end. It was tough. Yeah, it was really tough.
So, I mean, just to put the numbers out there, Chris Plesko, 2016, 15 days, 8 hours, 4 minutes. Andrew Onermaa, 2025, 15 days, 11 hours, and 15 minutes, you said.
Yeah.
How do we calculate in and factor in the extra sections?
Well, there's the one hard part of like, well, the one argument's like, well, you didn't do the Gila section. Like, even though that reroute was longer, it's like, well, you didn't do that. So there's like that argument, which is like, okay, that's potentially understandable. But then it's like, well, we didn't do this one key section, but then they also didn't do these other like 3 sections. It's like, well, how does that get factored in? It's like, it's because it's after the fact. And so with the men's record and the women's record, part of it is the level of competition has gotten so high that they've truly just obliterated the record so hard that it didn't matter to dive into the nuances.
Right.
And now we're just now getting into, well, this record was super close and no one's like willing to have the conversation about the nuances. And then even Matthew Lee mentioned, he was like, well, single speed is a bit of a different discussion because it's like some of these records we're talking about, they've already been broken and now like the routes are the same. It's like if we're talking about everything else is the same except for the fire detour, that's a different story than like, well, the fire detour was different, but also you did multiple sections of CDT, Coco claims, that kind of stuff. So there's one text is like afterwards, I mentioned something to Matthew. I was like, man, what did I say? I think I just said something about like, thanks for sending the reroute. And then I said like, girlfriend picked me up at the border, trying to process it all. What a wild ride. I said, definitely a heartbreaker seeing myself ahead of Plesko, then seeing his dot take highway out of Silver City and continuing on it to the end. And he mentioned, for the apologies for the slow reply, but the single speed record, much so more than the men's or women's record, is not comparable to what you did. What you did adds 4 hours up Coco via Fernie, then close to an hour leaving Silver, and then haven't measured the CDT from Hashida, but it's most certainly slower by an hour or so. And then he didn't mention the CDT at the beginning of New Mexico. So basically he's like, Coco itself was 4 hours. And then he proceeds to say, how many hours were you off Plesko? I said, 3 hours and 11 minutes. And he just goes, dude.
Yeah, what does that
mean? He said, the real problem is the Gila part. Missing that is hard to argue against. And then he said, did you hear from Plesko by any chance? And I said, I hear that about the Gila. I said, the alternate was certainly no joke, but I haven't seen the actual Gila portion. He said, the alt is sweet. And I was like, yeah, the alt was cool. And I hadn't talked to Plesko, and I actually ended up adding Plesko after the divide on Instagram, like at a request. Yeah. And I messaged him. I just said, hey, just wanted to say it was like an absolute honor or pleasure to chase your dot for so long. Like, thanks for adding to my experience. That's like all I said. And he just said he had a blast watching every day. And like, I just left it at that. And then it was just kind of like, that was it.
It's really interesting though, because we have Robin in the conversation that's kind of the interesting ambiguity about bike pack racing, and especially Tour Divide, with who's calling the shots and who's saying what's a record and what isn't a record. But it seems like the community of bike packing has said that Robin's race is the FKT, but he took the detour.
Yeah.
But like in your case, Matthew Lee was saying that's the ultimate factor that caused it not to be an FKT.
Was like the detour, like kind of pushing everything else aside.
I wonder what he thinks about
all the extra
distance.
And I think it'd be that Robbins was like not an official record because he didn't do the official route.
Yeah.
It was like, if he did, like, as far as all the CDT stuff, it's like Eustace did that also. So it's not like he did a harder course.
Yeah.
He wasn't battling a record that's been standing for like almost a decade. He was battling a record that was recent. And so it's almost like shifting back and talking about, well, what's the reference of the current record? And so that's kind of like been the only other thing where like I won the single speed category. It was amazing. I completed the route. It was amazing. It was like the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life. Like, nothing can take away from the experience. I just like truly am so grateful for it. And it's still hard to even fathom what happened out there. And it's going to take me so much time to like unpack all of it. And I got the top 10 and it was like second American, and that was all so sick. Such a great performance. But it was like the one thing that I ended up getting most laser focused on during the whole race was the part that just kind of like gets swept under the rug or like kind of like pushed off. It was like bikepacking.com put out their article really quickly. It was like, congrats to single speed winner and the second fastest we've ever seen on a single speed on the route. And you wanted to like have a moment to be like, well, hey, like, dude, let's talk about it for a second. What about like all this other stuff that I did that wasn't on that record year? So I don't know. I'm like thankful for you for like talking about it. So like some more people that might not even be aware of the differences, they'll be like, oh, okay, well, cool. Sure, someone else's name's on it, but like a little bit extra, like tip of the hat to Andrew for like that year. Like that sounds like that was even harder than what I thought it was. Like he actually did pretty good, and
I'll nod and tip my cap at the same time.
He didn't drift off at the end. That was like, I slept for 2 hours last night, so like my final push was a little bit outside of Pie Town, all the way to the finish, and I slept in a culvert before Silver City for 2 hours, and that was like my final push was from 5 a.m. in the morning to what time did I finish? Like 6 p.m. the next day. Yeah. So it was like 37 hour push with 2 hours of sleep to finish it off.
Yeah.
And I had
one shit on top of a shit.
Yeah, that was slow. And then I had a few naps because it was you're kind of falling apart by the end. Like I was pretty good with my sleep overall, but that deep in and it being so hot, and I probably had 4 naps in the final 37 hours. Like here's a 15-minute nap here. Here's a 3-minute nap here. I think there's only one where I made it to my alarm that was set for like 20 minutes, and then like maybe a 6-minute nap. So a few of those, but like I went hard all the way to the end, and the only spot where I let off a little bit was kind of after the resupply, and I didn't throw a pity party for myself because I'm like, that's really lame to like all of a sudden go really slow after that. Like it's like I'm gonna still
finish strong.
I'm gonna be efficient and like I'm gonna work, but I'm not gonna do that like 110% where I'm just absolutely collapsing at the finish line and can't like see straight. It was just like because I still wouldn't be there like even if I did that.
Right.
and like I'd still be short of his time. And then I thought about Taylor even. I was like, yeah, it'd be great to like get there and like be able to smile at her and like have a conversation.
Not be a zombie.
Yeah, like so yeah, that's kind of like the finish. It ended up being peaceful in a weird way of, I guess, is like you have to be okay with this might just be the way it is, where your name's never mentioned outside of like your placing for the year and winning single speed. Like it may never be in any kind of official documentation of how close that was to the record, or if someone could argue that is the record, is just like, well, so happy with what I did. I mean, so happy with it.
I feel like it's a conversation worth having. And the interesting thing about this Tour Divide in particular, and other races as well, who the fuck is running this show? You know, because like bikepacking.com just puts out an article and then that becomes the narrative.
Yeah.
But they're not associated with the race in any way other than they cover the race. And I love bikepacking.com, but I mean, like, there's a lot of nuance, and I think that it's valid to have conversations surrounding that. And I like Chris Plesko a lot. I'm have a lot of respect for Chris Plesko.
Yeah.
But he said in his article that I quoted earlier, he's like, I'm going to be rooting for my computer screen, right? Like, but it's interesting. It's a conversation worth having, and I'm not sure who's the right person to have that conversation, but it's fair and valid to have that conversation. You rode a harder version of the route with a detour that was either equal to, maybe harder than the original route.
Yeah.
And how does that shake out?
Yeah.
And then it leads to the larger question of FKTs in general, especially on Tour Divide, and should they exist? I know that's a conversation I hear periodically, and maybe we just look at each year. It's like because every year is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Weather's a big factor. Reroutes are very common, and the route has changed.
Yeah.
So how are we?
Yeah. And that's what it ultimately comes down to is, if when I look back at Tour Divide 2025, for one, I got to see my name was on the start list. I'm like, how cool is that? I was there. I showed up.
Forever on track.
And then, it was like, I had a hell of a ride out there, and I'm super proud of my performance. So like, no matter what, I was going to look back and be like, Tour Divide 2025, people saw what happened. Like, and you had to have your name in the top 10 for the race flow when you go over to that. Or if you just like pull it up, it's my name's the last name you see before you have to start scrolling through the finishers. And you're like, hell yeah. Like you don't have to scroll to see my name.
Yeah, it's there.
Especially with it being single speed too. It's like, it makes me really proud of, I know how hard I had to work to be efficient enough to be up there with those people. It's like, I'm not even going to do the whole, like, oh, if I had gears, like I would have been like, no, I chose to be single speed, and I fully own that. And I know that there's limitations to that. And I'm definitely not going to be in contention for top 3 where the caliber of riding is now. But it just like really solidified a lot of the decisions I made and the training I put in and how efficient I was, where, there's just sections where if you're on gears, you just immediately gain 5 miles, like over the course of like an hour, especially like some of these
on flat. Or
something. It's just, and so the fact that I would still end up catching some of these people or keep leapfrogging them it was awesome.
You were in the fucking conversation from day one, out of the gate.
Yeah, I was, I think, top 10 day 1, and then day 15 I was top 10. So it's like day 1 I was like,
loved
hey,
watching that too. Natalie, my girlfriend, I was watching her dot obsessively when I could, and I was like, he's 15, he's 14, he's 12, he's in the fucking top 10. You were fucking advanced, and like unfortunately, like Jacob had to bail out, and Lael had to bail out, and but that's the way it goes. It doesn't always.
Yeah, that was early on. That was something else I was really excited about, was doing some leapfrogging with Lael, doing some riding with Lael, and I was like, hey, Lael is like internationally known for being like a badass ultra cyclist. Like, man, woman, doesn't matter who you are. She has like respect across the world for being like one of the best ultra cyclists in the world. For sure. And I was like, I'm right here with her. Or like,
I know.
Oh, here we are. I'm ahead of her again. And so that was like a cool thing before I started thinking too much about the Plesko dot. I was like, it was like some of the names. I mean, I was second American, so it's like some of these names I just don't recognize. I'm like, I hear about them every once in a while. Obviously, they're like a heavy hitter. But like Lael is like one of those names where like this is known. Like it was funny. There's multiple times where like we rode through Fernie, downtown Fernie. I did my combo McDonald's gas station stop. I think Lael did maybe just the McDonald's, but we ended up leaving Fernie to continue on at basically the same time. We both got stuck at a train. Train was coming through, but right before that, people were out cheering her on and had signs and stuff. And so they're like, well, yeah. And then I'm just like this guy right behind her. They're like, oh, yeah, dude.
You too. Whoever you are.
And then it happened again the next day in Whitefish. It was like close to sunset. And there's like all these people out. And I ended up pulling ahead of her. And you could tell they're all like waiting for Lael. And like I start coming through and they're like, oh, hey, yeah, good job, dude. And
they
then,
hide their Lael signs.
Yeah, they have like Lael signs and stuff. And I was like, it didn't upset me at all. But I just kind of like thought it's funny. I was like, okay, like if I'm here and people have signs for someone else like right by me, I'm doing pretty good.
I use that as a marker. I think most people who know anything are like hearting Lael's dot on, they're like, that's one you heart, and you are riding with or around her a lot.
I'm like, if I can pull ahead of Lael or be around Lael on a single speed, then like I feel pretty good about like the game I'm playing right now.
No,
so
you feel fucking great about that.
So that was really cool. But yeah, the top 10, basically like being able to sneak into that was sick. Like I think I'm more excited about that than like the single speed win, just because the single speed field isn't super deep.
And it was such a fast and competitive year too.
It was.
To be in the top 10 of this field,
exactly
on a single speed.
Yeah, and the 2016 year ended up being super great conditions. So that was the other thing that was nice. I was like, it's like, well, it's at least like we had comparable conditions too. It wasn't like they got like a super shitty day and then we had great conditions. I will say the basin, I don't want to just like gloss over the basin altogether. The basin day we had was fucked up.
I know. I heard wind.
You always hear about the basin.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, so many things can happen at the basin. And me and Jesse, last name starts with an S. I forget his last name. We did like the first portion of the basin, a little bit. You hit highway for a little bit before you do more. And there's a sign on the side of the highway that's like electronic. And it says, caution, extreme winds today. Potential road closures.
Oh, God.
1 to 6 p.m. Gusts of winds 60 plus miles an hour. And I'm just like, dude, this is about to be our day. Like, we have 150 miles. And there's a sign, like it was 10 a.m. or something like that.
Jesus Christ.
And I was like, whoa, we got a little bit of time before it's extreme caution. And
make hay while the sun shines.
There's moments of like this amazing cross tailwind where you're fucking flying. And I was like, this is sick. But then we get to Atlantic City and it's like, oh, we're about to be in it. And there's moments where it's kind of like almost helping you, but not really. And then there's just insane crosswinds for a long, long time where I'm doing everything I can to stay upright, just like kind of swerving all over like I'm drunk. There's one gust as we got up on more of a ridge line where I lose my balance. I put a foot down and then it's blowing so hard for almost a minute straight. I'm just bracing myself. Like if I was just going to fall over otherwise. And just like for a minute, I'm just leaning into the wind. And finally, I'm like, okay, it's died down enough to where I can try to mount my bike again. And then you mount your bike and you're just weaving back and forth. And man, that was just, you finally are about to get out of it. And it was like 22 miles left or something like that. You make another turn and then it's just straight up headwind all the way to Wamsutter. And it took over 4 hours to do like the last 22 miles.
Holy
especially
shit.
Single speed. It was so messed up. It
You're
was
like 4
just
or 5 miles an hour.
Yeah, I was going like 4 to 5 miles an hour, working hard. There's times where I was just walking because I was just like, I'm over trying to grind this specific cadence on my single speed right now. It's even like when you're going on the downhills, you're like pedaling. And I finally got to Wamsutter, to the Loves travel stop. I've never looked forward to a gas station so much in my life, I think. And I went inside, and the only thing I could do is get one of the tall jugs of water. And I just paid for that. I went back outside and sat down. This is the first time the whole event where I sat down at a gas station. And I just started chugging water. Like, I couldn't do anything. I just drank water for like 5 minutes. I was like, okay, now I can go inside and start considering what a resupply is. So that's like how bad that day was. But otherwise, is like, for the most part, yes, it was hot. Yes, there's sections where you're dealing with headwind and it's awful. But that was the one day where I was like, these conditions are messed up. It's not your traditional, like, oh, it's super muddy, it's super wet. It was just absolutely unrelenting wind and hot through the basin. And I legitimately, like, leaving that gas station to go to the local motel, I like pulled up track leaders to see the people still coming in. And I was just like thinking of them of like friends at war. I was just I hope they make it okay. Like, I can't believe what they're going through right now. It's like this super deep moment of empathy of like, oh my God, like there's the women's leader right now. She's like trying to get through that. Dirty Dan was getting through it. I was just like, I just hope everybody makes it to that gas station, and like, that's all they need to do. They just got to make it to the gas station, and then it's going to be okay. And that was one of the like standalone moments of like, wow, this is humbling, just what Mother Nature is doing right now.
Is wind the worst condition?
I would say
what is
this
the worst?
year, yes.
It's a question I like to ask people. Like, what is the worst
this year? Yes, I think even last year they had some really gross, just like wet, cold weather where most people stopped in Fernie.
Yeah,
where it's just, man, everything's getting soaked all the way through, and you're cold, and then you're like burning way more calories. And at a point, like, your equipment's starting to get affected a lot more from all the grime. I think that's a lot worse. Like, in the middle of the basin, I probably would have been like, I will absolutely take cold and wet. Like, I would have been begging for that. But
how about a 14-hour stint in a porta potty with 2 other guys?
Yeah, with that
or 8 hours or whatever.
The impassable roads, because at least with that, with wind, you can still make progress.
Yeah,
it's like very annoying, and at a point, it's almost a detriment where it's like almost better to just sleep for a while and let it die off.
Yeah. It's so taxing.
But that's definitely why I stopped at the motel. Is like, there's zero reason to go further because it's still like 50 more miles of this. So no, wind's not the worst. I would argue that like cold, but not cold enough to snow to where it's just freezing cold and wet. Yeah.
Like when, okay, I wanted to show you this when we were talking about Chris Plesko.
Yeah.
I created this. I took y'all's graph from track leaders. Go ahead and take it. And this is a graph, the speed and time plot graph on track leaders from for where you slept.
Okay.
And I was coming into this conversation, it was my assumption that you had studied his, record very closely. I've zoomed in on those, and y'all were so in sync. I don't know where you actually slept and where he slept and stuff, but in terms of like overall race strategy or how it unfolded,
yeah,
you were like right on his schedule. And obviously,
that's
like
funny.
You kind of got on his schedule because you tuned into his dot.
Yeah.
We're like, all right, I got to stay ahead of it.
Yeah.
But it's like a carbon copy.
That's really cool. The gaps where we're not moving at all is very similar. Yeah, there's a couple times.
This is the one on top, by the way, in case you were wondering.
Okay. Cool. I like that. I got some some higher speeds going on.
What was your gear ratio versus his gear ratio? You said he was pushing a stiffer gear.
He had a much stiffer gearing, so he was 32/16.
Oh wow!
And then I was 32/18. So I was one of the easiest gears out of everybody. I think period doing single speed on the divide. Like I think 32/16 is basically the fastest we've seen with Plesko, and I think Newberry did. He might have done like 34/17, but it's still 2-1.
Okay.
And then, a lot of friends are like 32/17 is a good move if you don't want to do 32/16.
That's what my Fargo is, by the way.
Yeah, a lot of people convinced on 32/17, and then I was like a little scared to do so, but I was like, I'm going even easier. I'm doing 32/18, and I think two key things that factored into that was I was running flat pedals, and so I can't yank up as hard on some steep pitches. And just from doing a lot of riding in the Ozarks, I just found that like a slightly easier gearing than what people would traditionally think is fast or good. It gave me more of the ability to choose when I wanted to put out power on long climbs. And still, it's like I could hold a higher cadence, which is generally good. Like if you can hover between 90 and 110, that's kind of like what you see in the pro peloton, maybe a little bit higher, like 95 to 110 or something like that. But yeah, just on climbs, instead of being forced to grind, put out loud torque, there's just times where I could be like, you know what, I can relax a little bit here if I want to. Or if I want to go faster, I have the ability to like really push on the pedals and get on top of it. So, I just felt like I had more control. And then in the flat and the rolling terrain, I knew it was going to be a little bit of a trade-off there. But hold a little bit of a higher cadence and just did my best to, eat the food, do all the things on the bike that you possibly can in sections where you're spun out. And honestly, I was just like, I just need to be efficient too. There's just going to be times where you're going to have to be faster at the gas station as a trade-off or whatever it may be. But I wanted to climb like really well. I love climbing. That's like one of my strong suits as a rider. Anyone locally would agree with that. And yeah, I wanted to own the climbs. Like I'm totally fine with walking. I have no problem with hiking my bike. No ego whatsoever. Like there's times where I was looking forward to it. I was like, please just like, where's a pitch where it's steep enough to where I can justify getting off my bike and pushing it. I was like, on day, like a side tangent on day one, Layla and I are going up Elk Pass. We like end up syncing up at Elk Pass at the same time. And we're on the first steep pitch together. And I take 2 pedal strokes and I immediately swing my leg over the bike and start hiking up. And she sits on the bike and she's in her easiest gear and she's swinging left and right, like working, getting up the hill. And I'm on the other side of the road hiking. And we're just going the exact same speed for 10 plus minutes. Just, well, maybe not that long, like almost 10 minutes of just, like I'm pushing my bike. She's riding it. We crest at the same time, and then I throw my leg over the bike and I start riding, and then I'm gone on like the gradient that's a little bit easier. And then, there's like maybe another pitch where we're like close together and I'm hiking again, and then I take off again. And so that was like a good indicator early on where I was like, you know what, I'm going the same speed. Mm-hmm.
It's the flats where you really get fucked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And so I liked my gearing a lot, and I climbed up some crazy steep stuff a few times. I was like, I probably should hike, but I didn't want to walk any pavement. That's like where I almost draw the line. We're like, come on, dude, like it's pavement. And so there's like one pass in Colorado where, man, I was working hard, and I should have probably made, I don't know. I rode it all the way up and it's fine, but there's something on the reroute. The steepest pavement of the whole divide was on the fire reroute.
Oh, really?
Dude, this absurd climb. And I didn't walk it at all, but I like was above threshold, like trying so hard.
Zigzagging on pavement,
yeah. Yeah, so like all the stuff like that, I was like, I don't want a harder gear in this. Like I'm almost like a 5 watt per kilo athlete. The fact that I'm trying this hard, I don't want a harder gear. And then there's just, so many climbs where I felt like I had to sink into a rhythm and I loved it and it was great. There's areas where I just absolutely flew by people on climbs, and I didn't need to be in a harder, like 32, 16, 2-1. It was like I was flying by people on climbs, being in my easier gearing. So yeah, that was like a bit of a curveball, and I was second guessing it just because it's one of those outliers where everybody else is like, are you sure? Like, are you sure? Yeah. And then I'm not.
You just went with your gut.
Yeah, I went with my gut, and I'm happy with it.
We got a lot of questions about gear.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's talk about your gear. Obviously Singlespeed, 3218. Why? Well, no, you already talked about like why you approached Tour Divide from a Singlespeed standpoint.
Rookie year, really diving into my own experience out there. And not getting caught up with what the front of the race was doing. And then, also the trying to find my cool slice of Tour Divide history.
All right, let's get a listener question from Nat Daddy.
Okay.
I love this. This is such good marketing. Steel bike, why?
Yeah.
It's a sly question for Southern steel bikes there. I like it, yeah.
Well, so my bike was a slow Southern Steel Warhorn, which is a custom-made steel bike by my good friend Jesse Turner here in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And steel feels really good. That's one short answer is that the ride quality is actually amazing, especially when paired with like carbon components, and it's marginally heavier. But it's also like, this is my homie that handmade a bicycle. Like, how cool is that? Like, that's meaningful to me. Like, taking it on a journey. Like, there's something about anytime I didn't feel good, or even if I did feel good, it was just like every time I looked at that bike, like that bike meant something to me. Like, this was handmade by a friend and for me. Like, it was a custom made bike.
Custom rack too, right?
Yep, custom rack that like we went back and forth, and I tested one for a while and it was great. And then I realized it's like, man, I need to carry this foam pad because I don't want to deal with an inflatable pad. What if it loses air, it gets a hole? It just adds time. It's kind of annoying. Like, I've used both. I'm not against them in a lot of settings, but in a race.
When I was on the AZT, I got a flat and I was sleeping on the fucking rocks, so there's a reason to.
And it's so quick. And so like I started putting that on my rack, and there's just enough hanging off the end to where it can start sagging, and then it can catch the rear tire and it can get like sucked in between the rear tire and the wheel. And it's like, okay, we got to add a little bit more metal here. It's going to make it almost look like a rooster tail, but this is very specifically for this pad, and it's like very functional. And so being able to dive into the nitty gritty of that, and then even some extra support on the sides for the panniers that were custom made. Steel, also Singlespeed and steel just goes together so well. It's like,
it's just heavy metal.
It is. There's a little bit of like a style to it. Just, what was really cool is when I made it down to the Gila, there's this guy, like a community leader or something, that he was pointing out water at the library, and he was taking photos and posting it to the Tour Divide Facebook group. He was so stoked on the race, and he like, yeah, you get water. And he took a photo of me, and he's like, you're the first steel bike. Like, he was,
oh, really?
He was hyped on it. He was like, you're the first steel bike. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. That's cool. And he's like, yeah, dude. And so I can claim that first steel bike of the Divide.
First steel bike
year.
in the Divide. Yeah. That wouldn't even put on my,
but it feels like you can just huck it off of a cliff on accident and go pick it up, especially being single speed, and be like, all right, well, my bad. And then just like keep riding it. So
my 2011 Salsa Fargo steel fork single speed bike, first bike packing bike I ever bought. We'll never get rid of it.
Yeah.
it's my Armageddon bike.
Yeah.
Like it feels, I mean, it's like home.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like nothing could break it. It's funny. Both of my other bikes, my gravel bike is out of commission. My titanium Hayduke is out of commission right now. Like they're both broken, both geared bikes, but I always have my single speed steel hardtail that will always work no matter what. I had a little sealant for this last ride. That was it.
Nice. Yeah. It's like the compliance of it, the style of it. It's like a little bit more niche. It just adds, I don't know. It adds some character, adds some flair. And then I just have some really badass patina on it from like
I love
a few years of riding. And Jesse's like inspected a few times and keep putting clear coat over it. He says like to any new customers, he's like, you can't do what Andrew's doing. Like this, he's like the one person that gets to do it. This voids warranty and like.
Well, Jesse also does it.
I guess there's two of us.
But he owns the company. He can do that. He came because he was on the podcast, and so he brought his bike, and I love that patina.
Yeah.
But from a warranty standpoint, you got to put that disclaimer out there. Yada yada.
So I'm looking forward to having more steel bikes. Honestly, I think we have it in the pipeline for me to get a gravel bike. And so I'm very excited to have a gravel bike of Slow Southern Steel. And I love the one I've been riding, but it'll be really cool to dial in like a perfect custom steel gravel bike next.
All right. We had another listener question. They want to know what shoes you were, I think you were 5s.
Yeah. So I have the 510 Trail Cross.
Yeah, the 510s. Yeah.
So the non-clip-in version. I've had the clip-in version of the Trail Cross for a couple years, and those work great. I've used them for things like Doom and some day rides where maybe there's more hike-a-bike, but I went with flats. And so the stealth rubber on the bottom is great. I used to rock 510 climbing shoes all the time. And they have this really specific rubber compound that's really great that they nerd out on. And with cycling shoes, they hold on to grip rocks really great for hike-a-bike and stuff. Yeah. And they grip the pedals well. And the reason I went flats in the first place.
Perfect. I was going to ask you.
Because that probably surprised a lot of people. Is I've been having some really bad heel pain not last couple of years, at least the last year.
Your Achilles?
Not Achilles, really. It's very specific to like my heel, like the bottom of my heel.
Oh.
Just like excruciating pain, and I don't really deal with it until it's 6 hours or more. And I've tried it even with like less aggressive shoes. So I have some carbon like S-Work shoes where I've been able to get away with, I can do a 24-hour race, or I've even done like a 38-hour race in them. And maybe the heel hurts pretty bad for a while, but then I work through it. But it seems like in the last year on longer rides, it's become worse and even less tolerable. And that was just a big fear going into it. I was like, I'm going to be doing easily 15 plus hours a day. And if my heels are just absolutely like excruciating pain, this is compromising the ride so early. And I kind of ran out of time of trying to see a specialist about it. Like, hey, what's going on? What can I do? So that's something I want to address moving forward. But also, I was already kind of considering it before that with just the efficiency of getting on and off the bike and just the simplicity of I'm walking into a store and I'm just a dude wearing normal shoes.
I love that, yeah.
If I am changing layers, it's a little bit easier to slide on normal shoes and put them back on. And
it's great for hike-a-bike.
Hike-a-bike, they were
with
amazing.
Single speed, you're going to be hike-a-biking a little bit more. You hop off, you don't have to clip out. There is a wear and tear over time of like clipping and unclipping. You know, like that motion is going to...
Yeah, and it's even like you hear about like, oh, my cleat position got all weird or whatever, and you spend so many hours fixated in a specific position. Flat pedals lets you continually micro adjust.
Yes, micro adjust. Yeah.
And so I think that was a big part of helping work through how that first week I was having really bad leg pains. It really helped me compensate and keep changing it and eventually work through it.
Yeah, if like the back of your hamstring, you can like put your foot a little forward, or you know, like you can, if your knee hurts, a little bit backwards. Like have flat pedals on all my bikes, even my carbon gravel bike.
Yeah.
They all have flat pedals.
Yeah. Disclaimer for me is like, I would not want them on a geared bike at all. And I'm probably not going to be using flat pedals for like the rest of the year. I'll probably be clipped in on just about everything. But for like the objective and the specifics of the everything, it worked out really well. And yeah, I thought it was sick. I'm someone that like cares about some of the marginal gains, and there wasn't too many times where I was just really wishing that I was getting the little bit extra up, and you kind of learn how to adjust your form.
Yeah.
And anything where I really wish I was cranking up hard, it would have been like for a brief 5-10 seconds, and it is like, you know what, just hop off and hike it anyway. And it's the bummer sometimes where it's like you can carry the momentum just a little bit more to where you crest a hill, and then you're like, you keep going. There's like those moments where you're definitely losing time, but all said and done, like the hotels and like the gas stations and getting on off the bike to pee and everything else, normal shoes is pretty sick. And it's just like, you're one of the only people doing it, especially at the front. It's like, I was, first steel bike, definitely first person with flat pedals, first person not wearing like cycling attire. I'm wearing shorts and like tees and normal shoes. Like, there's a little bit of, I don't want to say like a punk aspect to it, but it's bringing some of that single speed community flair to it. It's like, it's like represent, like, hey, we can throw down, and like, sure, there's certain things where like it makes sense to be wearing more aerodynamic when you're dealing with the wind. It's like, yeah, Andrew, you like had to push harder in the wind on those days. If you wore like your actual kit, it would have been better. I was like, yeah, I was also comfy as hell. And like, you know, like I felt good mentally, and yeah, that's so much of it.
Yeah. That's kind of my approach. And I like just like being able to hop off the bike and go in a gas station. I'm wearing like pretty normal clothes and like shoes and whatever. It's like, I don't know. I like, one thing that I like about it is that I want to take away the barriers to entry to go cycling. And you don't have to, you know, wear a full kit. You can if you want to. Yeah. But you could also just go in your, you know, your bedrock sandals and flat pedals and jean cutoff shorts and a t-shirt, and you go ride. Yeah. So yeah, we have similar approaches. Yeah.
I'll say like everything I was wearing was merino wool for the most part. So
me too.
Ibex clothing. I've been wearing their stuff for the last year and love it. And I wore their UV hoodie way more than I thought I would have. Like that ended up being my staple for the top.
Which was interesting because it actually went over your helmet too.
I would do that not all the time. I had early on, I sunburnt the shit out of my ears so badly. I totally forgot. And then my lower lip as well. Like my lower lip, I burnt it so badly. It was eating food at times was like almost impossible. It was just like a really stupid oversight early on. It's like, oh, you should have put on some kind of chapstick with UV protection in it or whatever. Yeah. And so the hood, that was part of it. It was like kind of trying to protect my ears after absolutely roasting them. They were like scabbing up and like open wounds. It was like gnarly right out the gate. And then it was also just kind of comfy at times too. I'd have my earbuds tucked in there, and then it like took away from the wind as well, so I could hear my music or podcast or whatever a little bit better. Yep.
I'm a big fan of the hoodies. Yeah. The long sleeve hoodies,
pretty crucial
because you get good sunblock. Yep. From your neck, like everything that you're saying.
And it was like a lighter material than the merino wool tech tee I wore. Like I found that it felt even lighter on my body. So the merino wool tee that I wore sometimes is just like for the hotel to do laundry, or I wore it day one and like a few other days. But it was almost exclusively that sun hoodie the whole ride as like my base layer. Yeah.
We had a question from a listener, not Herschel is the person. Okay. They said something about Breezy, and I thought they were talking about maybe your hoodie. Okay. But do you know what they're talking about?
Breezy? Did they frame it in a particular way?
Hold on. I just put Breezy on my notes, and I thought you might know.
I saw some of the Eddie Clark photos. I'm like, man, that thing was blowing around in the wind like crazy.
Not Herschel. Breezed. comma, are they worth it?
Breezed. How do they spell it? 2 E's?
Breezed.
Damn. I don't know, unfortunately.
Okay.
Maybe
I don't know either.
If you have more context, maybe shoot me a DM on Instagram and I'll try to get back to you.
There you go, not Herschel. Let's talk about sleep.
Okay.
I'm really like, how? Okay, first of all, what was your sleep strategy going into it? Camping, hotels, whatever, how many hours?
Yeah.
Like, what was your strategy and approach to sleep?
Well, as we know, I didn't have the best plan, but sleep was something I thought about. I was like, okay, loose plan is I wanted to move like 16 hours a day or more. And I was like, that should allow me to get 4 hours of sleep a night, ideally. And then maybe 4 hours of just like whatever happens in the day, you know, you're not going to like be perfect. So of course, resupplies, you're going to eat some time. You're going to have to use the restroom. Maybe there's mechanicals. It's almost like I was giving myself 8 hours. Is that right? 8 hours?
Yeah.
8 hours.
16 and 24, or 16 and 8 and 24. Yeah.
Of like flex. And it's like, okay, maybe there's some days where you go longer than 16. Maybe some days where you go shorter, but trying to average around 16. And so sleep is like, you don't really need to be flirting with sleep deprivation too much with that length, especially early on. I was like, if anything, later on, kind of start cranking the dial up on running out the reserves of what you have left. And so, yeah, I was like thinking around 4 hours or so. Night one ended up being a little bit shorter. Night one ended up being one of my worst nights of sleep. I caught up to Lael, and we're kind of like riding side by side for a little bit. I'm like, I have no clue how far I'm riding tonight. Like, I don't, like, I should probably stop at some point. She's like, yeah, I know. It's like getting colder, and like, I'm stoked and I'm not super tired, but I should probably be sleeping soon too. And I was like, in my notes, I got this thing about Butt's Cabin, and Butt's Cabin is the year Mike Hall set the record. He stopped there night one. And I was like, oh, that seems like a good place to stop. Like, why do I need to go further in that?
Mike.
Like, you know, like, and she's like, yeah, I wonder what it's looking like. And so we get there, and there's like 4 or 5 bikes outside of it. I'm like, that doesn't seem good. And like open up the door, and there's like, I think 6 people in there and another bike in there. So it's slammed. And there, you could have probably found some space. It was like, what's the point? And there's a picnic table right outside of it. And Lael's like, I'm just going to sleep on the picnic table. I'm like, right on. I'm like, I'm probably just going to pass out on the ground right here. Like, I don't need to go further. I don't really feel like going further. And there's like this floodlight on the entrance of the cabin.
Oh no.
So every time there's motion, it kicks on. So we got there later than all these other people, obviously, because they're already there. They're already sleeping. And so for the next few hours, it's like the light's constantly kicking on. People are moving around, like either someone's showing up or someone's leaving. It's kind of like a checkpoint in a way. And so terrible sleep. It's just like you're getting woken up constantly. And I should have just hiked 200 yards away and just slept. But it's like that night one, kind of like you're like excited about the race. You're like, okay, this seems like a landmark. And like I'm in it. I'm like doing it, you know? But yeah, totally should have just not slept there. And that ended up being less than 4 hours of laying down time, but it's probably like 2.5 hours of actual sleep, maybe. And I think it's because like my tent didn't even pop up on track leaders, like as if I slept there. It's like if it's 4 hours, I think that's when the tent pops up.
Okay.
And I started rolling this basically because I heard Lael's moving around, getting ready to go. And she was explaining to some guy showed up like right when she was about to leave. Like he rode for way too long, but just made there. And he's like, oh my God, I can't believe I made it. Is this like his English wasn't great. And it's like, dude, you're this destroyed on like,
Day
you should
one.
have stopped earlier. Like, what are you doing? But that kept me awake. And so I ended up moving. But night 2, I was like, I have to recover from that already. Like, so I planned on getting a motel and sleeping for 5 hours to kind of make up for it.
Yeah.
So for the most part, it was around 4 hours if I slept outside. and maybe closer to 5 hours if I slept inside. And that stayed pretty consistent. There's a couple times where I dip a little bit under 4 hours. One time right after Lima, I got a little too excited and was like, I'm only going to do 3. And I rode for 2 hours and it was super cold. And then I had to sleep for 40 minutes after 2 hours of riding, just to I couldn't stay awake. And it was week 2. I took a note of it. It was week 2 that I hit snooze for the first time. So for the first week,
I was gonna ask you
never
about
hit
that.
snooze. And quite a few times it'd be I'd wake up 8 minutes before the alarm and I'd be like, all right, no reason to lay down for this next 8. I'd have a few kind of crazy panic dreams where it'd be someone standing next to me looking down at me what are you doing, mate? The race is going on. And so it's these fever dreams of thinking you're talking to someone or trying to justify why you're laying down on the ground. And then
Weird.
you're was that real? Or were they checking to see if I was okay? And you have no idea. But usually multiple times of waking up. And that was the average though. And the later it got, I got to sleep a little bit more all the way through versus the panic wake ups.
Yeah.
Just from getting more and more tired. But I had one morning where I think the first time I hit it was just a really cold morning and not a good sleep. And low on food, where I had a honey bun before going to sleep, and that was my dinner. And I snoozed for 10 minutes and then maybe another 10. I was let me just let the sun get up a little bit just to where I can see. So I'm not using my headlamp to do all this shit right now, and I'll be a little bit more motivated. And maybe a few times where I added 10 minutes, upwards of 30 minutes to my sleep.
Yeah. Is it? I don't understand how you're not more tempted to hit that snooze button more often. But I think it speaks to how locked in to the race that you were.
Yeah, it's just kind of other people around me are doing this right now. I think people doing an ITT, it'd be a lot easier to justify. Be I'm going to ride so much faster if I just recover a little bit better. Let me do another hour, that kind of stuff.
Right,
but
right.
It's just other people around you are just truly going nuts for 2 weeks, and you're they're going crazy for 2 weeks. I need to go crazy for it. And there's some people I was talking to where it helped inform some of my decisions, where some people are oh, I'm doing 3 to 4 a night. And you're oh, it's I'm doing more 4 to 5. And it makes you question. You're am I not trying hard enough? And then they'd be well, I had to take 2 or 3 naps today, and it might be day 4. And you're well, I've taken no naps so far at all. And so, you'd have these moments where you just see how messed up other people were from not sleeping enough. And then it'd be someone you never see again.
Yeah.
Or maybe you see them 2 days later, but they just seem like an absolute shell of a human. You're this seems way too early for you to be the way you are right now.
Right.
And it's hard because you're all kind of out of it. But you just look at certain people, you're man, I hope I don't look the way that they're looking right now, So that was the sleep. And with the hotel is, trying to really double down on super quality. It's I got the bed. I can set the temp. A lot of the times it's I'm getting my body temp down fast. It's been really, really hot today. I get to the hotel at whatever time, blasting the AC, get the body temp down fast, get the shower, clean up super well. Got the blackout blinds, and then I'm out for whatever number of hours. And then what I love is you can be so organized with, you have your bike in this controlled environment and lay a bunch of stuff out. And it's those moments of really, let me really hone in on things I need to throw away or readjust. And there's these really great moments of clarity of okay, this is a great reset. Now I need to push hard to kind of compensate for it. But I'm totally energized to do this next big push.
Yeah.
So I'd kind of do the the ebb and flow of, okay, stop a little bit earlier for a hotel, but that means I'm about to go big, but I'm setting myself up for success to go big.
So how many hotels versus camps?
Man, I think I might have slept outside like 6 times.
Okay.
So there's a lot of inside.
Not as much as I would have thought, honestly. Because like inside is like very convenient.
Yeah.
You know, you wash it, you get a good night's sleep, set the temperature, you charge your shit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of advantages for your arguments for like hotel camping along the way.
I brought everything I needed to be warm in like any environment. So later on, I had my sleeping bag would have been way too warm for like New Mexico. I like slept with, I guess when I slept in the culvert for 2 hours, I had just like my normal riding stuff on, and I slid into it and didn't really zip it up. But like further north, it didn't matter how cold it was. I was like, I can be in this and be comfy and then get out and start riding. So that was a big part of it, was I didn't need to depend on the hotel. Like I never slept in a pit toilet once. Some people like that's such a big thing.
Yeah. I
never
feel like you should have just had the experience.
I thought about it towards the end. I was like, man, I need to do this once, but it's just like I could always sleep outside and not worry about it. I didn't need the 4 walls around me. So some people, maybe they bivvied more, but they had to be really strategic with their bivvies of like, I got to be in a pit toilet or in a community center or something. Versus me, I'd be like, I can bivvy wherever the hell I want and then keep going the next day.
Yeah. Okay, so last night I slept 5 hours. It was 4th of July, made bad decisions. And I was thinking about it on the drive up here, right? I'm tired. I'm cognitively not well. I'm tired. And I mean, you know, I'm like a lot of people who maybe done like 3 or 4 or 5 day efforts, you know, but to do that for 2 weeks seems like, it really does seem unfathomable. And I think it's something that like, as a podcast host, I haven't dug into like enough, but like, how well did your body respond to 2 weeks of really limited sleep? Cognitively, physically, like how did you respond to that?
It was, you notice it towards the end more. As soon as you're not in engaging terrain, you start slipping off real quick. So engaging terrain to me is that it needs to have some technical riding and at least some like up and down. Like I need to be working to get up a hill. If it's just a long straight flat, it's so easy to start drifting off and get really tired and want to fall asleep. Something that surprised me more than like so several riders, myself included, found themselves like falling asleep on descents, basically.
Yeah.
And I like kind of had that experience, but never to this extent where it could even be midday. Like I had a moment, super sunny day in Colorado, going through the mountains. You do a descent. You're not going slow. You're going a good 30 to 40 miles an hour, but it's a wide road and none of the turns are like where you got to slam on the brakes. It's like you can kind of just keep letting the speed go. And I was nodding off. A lot of people end up getting nosebleeds. I got a bunch of nosebleeds for a few days. I'm nodding off. My nose is bleeding and I'm like railing a descent in the mountains. And I'm like, holy shit, this is not good. Like this is 2 p.m. and I'm falling asleep on something like this. And that bit some people in the ass. Like, I hate to see it for Jacob, but like, when I heard the news, I was like, oh my God, what happened? And someone's like, well, he fell asleep descending. I was like,
yeah,
of course. I was like he was riding so well. Like what else would have happened? It was almost like he was riding so well that it happened. It was, you have to, some people get so excited that they just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And it just happens before you can even be aware of it. And I had several moments where it kind of sneaks up on you, or you just like dismiss it a few times. You're like, well, I can't lose ground. I can't let these people catch up.
Yeah.
And so, the sleep, it's just like for at least the first few days, I didn't really think too much of it because I slept relatively enough. and you're still early in the effort. You're sleeping well beforehand. But by week 2, that's when it really is like, man, you're only halfway through. And this is the point where you have to keep convincing yourself it's worth going this hard. And that's when you start seeing more people drift back. You start seeing the bigger gaps. It really becomes clear. It's like, okay, who's your top 10? Who's your top 20? Especially the very pointy end. It's like, is third and fourth, are like they really willing to keep duking it out? Or is fourth going to be like, you know what, dude? Like, I don't want third that bad. Like, everybody starts slowing down a little bit.
Snooze a little.
Yeah. Or it's just like, I'm not willing to set my alarm for only 3. I'm not even going to try. Like, I need to do at least 4. And so, it's when you're completely tapped into your new reality and it's a different world. And it's something where you can't, of course, those that have done the divide more than once, they can kind of try to mentally prep for it more. And I think a lot of them, it seems like they sleep a little bit more on the front end, and then they're willing to start, I don't know, running it out a little bit more. Yeah, I think about like Martin. He said he was doing 5 hours a night. He got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 overall. Seventh overall. Phenomenal run. I never saw him. He was always kind of like in my general area, and I saw him at the Toaster House. I saw him really briefly before the Toaster House in Pie Town. He was riding by, and I saw him at Pie Town, Toaster House. He's like, I'm gonna sleep here. I've been doing 5 hours a night. I'm like, damn, that's awesome. I was like, I gotta keep moving. I'm on Singlespeed. He asked if I was staying there. I was like, no, dude, I gotta go further. And then I said I kind of cut my day short earlier the day before, which was true. I was like, I kind of got to make up some ground too. But then he totally didn't sleep the last night. Like, so like, hey, you slept 5 hours a night, but then he pushed from Pie Town to the finish
because he had a little up in the tank.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was, and he like got really close to Mike Martin. And then Dirty Dan, he did a push to the finish as well. He went a little bit past Pie Town, I think slept pretty quickly after Pie Town, and he pushed all the way to the finish. So, I think there's some of them that like found the right balance. And then at the pointy end, it's kind of like, you just keep looking at each other and you're like, hey, how far are we going to plow each other into the ground? It's just like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Unless someone's just so much further fit than everybody else, a lot of it really does come down to stoppage time. So, if I was to do it again, I'd probably still be sticking at like right around that 4 hour a night, between 4 and 5, and like definitely not make the mistake I did on night 1. Like, get your real 4 hours on night 1.
Right.
Some stuff like that.
What would you do different if you did it again? I mean, from hearing you tell about it, it sounds like mostly it went pretty well. You're happy with your gear, your flat pedals, your sleep strategy.
I loved my setup. I don't want to like just gloss over, I had custom bags as well. So Zach was South City Stitchworks. I had some custom panniers from him. I loved the panniers. It's like my first like race effort with panniers, and we really went back and forth dialing in the right setup for that. And the full length top tube bag, bags were dialed. I loved his harness system where I could just have my sleep kit in a dry bag, pop it right off. And I basically had my layers in the panniers. Like, one side was a little bit more rain gear oriented, the other side was more like layers that I change throughout the day. Like, a little bit colder in the morning, I got my down jacket, and in the evening, the gearing was pretty awesome. I went bigger tires than pretty much everybody does. That was another thing I did. I did 2.4s.
They looked like I was going to say 2.4s.
And like almost everybody does like 2.2s. And it was just another one of those things where I was like, I'm going to be comfy. And I also believe that this is not enough of a deciding factor to where I think I'm okay with 2.4. I was like, there's going to be single track and descents that I'm going to be happy with 2.4s. I think the climbing traction is going to be nice in areas to have a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think the washboards is going to be nice. And so, yeah, I'd throw that in there. I was the fastest person with 2.4 tires.
On a steel bike.
On a steel bike. Just add enough disclaimers. It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah. We need all the asterisks here.
Oh, man. I would put an insert in the rear tire. Definitely a little bit of extra weight in the rear. And just some of these descents, you're just ripping a mountain descent. You're ripping thousands of feet at a time, and there's rocks everywhere. And you can try to be all gentle on the bike and choose the perfect line. But sometimes you get kind of tired of finessing and wish you could just kind of point and shoot and plow through a little bit more. And
Yeah.
I got some little dingers where I was like, you wince and you're like, oh man, did that have maybe cracked the rim? And so insert would have been good. I didn't end up having any issues. I've been rocking some session wheels and handlebars for a few years. They have some representation here in Northwest Arkansas, and that's like a reason I got excited on them. And ended up being fine, but definitely some close calls. And that would have given some peace of mind and just like would have saved some energy and effort. I think Jacob Lose last year got a flat in like the final CDT, and he just rode his insert all the way to the finish because he didn't want to deal with it. So
When
it's like
Sophian finished the Tour Divide, his chain was stretched out beyond belief, and his I said Sophian. It was actually oh my God, my brain right now.
Did Uba win?
Uba.
Yeah, okay,
yeah. When Uba came into the finish, he was on like barely a rear tire and a stretched out chain.
Yeah, I still had tread left too. I did the Continental Dubnatals, so it's like the Race King's always been this really badass tire that has come back around and has become really popular. But it's the 2.4 version of the Race King, and it's it's all the Dubnatal, and they were amazing. I liked them on the single track. They felt quick on the pavement. Obviously, they couldn't have been too slow on the pavement. If I like had a slow gearing, like there's no way my tire could have been so slow tuned, or like I still finished pretty well. So they couldn't have been that slow.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said about comfort on long rides, like mentally, right? Like if you mentally are like, oh, I'm comfortable, I'm happy. I think that adds.
I'll say I ran them higher probably than I wanted to, like a higher pressure, but it was like the right balance of helping to make sure I wasn't dinging the rims. And then also with the paved sections, I wasn't the person that's going to stop and be like, let me add 3 PSI to each tire because it's a long paved section. And then when I get back to road or like gravel, let me take PSI back out.
Yeah.
There's some people that do that, and it's advantageous if you're willing to do that. I didn't want to deal with it.
I don't deal with it
adjust
either.
my tire pressure once. Is like one less thing I wanted to think about.
Yeah.
I think I let out a little bit of air once after like a few days. I was like, this feels a little stiff. And I went to the rear and went, and then front, and then that was it.
Bye.
Like,
Yeah. What I do, I do this 100% of the time. When I get to that POI, I'm going to, you do your mental checklist, right? I need this, and I'm going to let a few PSI out. And then I like start riding again. I'm like, fuck, I forgot.
Yeah.
And I do that 100% of the time. And I just never adjust the PSI.
Yep.
We're at 3 hours and it's 12:30 in the morning.
Okay.
Is there anything, I have a closing thing, but like, was there anything that you personally wanted to address?
If anyone is curious if I had any mechanicals or anything, I retensioned my chain 3 times throughout the entire ride. And that was it. I hadn't gone through my front brake pads all the way to where they needed to be changed, but by the time I was in Salida, I was like, this would be a cool moment to swing by a bike shop and just like get a once over on everything, just like some peace of mind for the home stretch. Like, let's check the torque on everything. And at that point, I was like, I should buy a belt. I bet Absolute Bikes has like a mountain bike belt. And I was like, for the hell of it.
Do you have the belt on right now?
I don't.
All right.
And then I was like, I'll just have them. I have some brake pads on me
I had 2 sets. Is like, I'll just have them swap out the front to, just by the end, maybe they'd be a little bit more gone than I wanted. And I got into slide at 9:30. So it was 30 minutes before they opened. I was like, well, damn, like I don't want to wait 30 minutes for the bike shop for things that I don't necessarily need. And I ended up going to the grocery store in Poncha Springs, and there's this local, he was amazing. He was just like so stoked, asking questions. And I like briefly mentioned Absolute Bikes, and he's like, oh, well, there's like mobile mechanics. There's all kinds of options. Like, man, just, and so he ended up, he's like, dude, call. And so I called Down It Cycles. It's a guy that actually used to live in Northwest Arkansas that lived in Salida, and he's going to move back to Northwest Arkansas. His name's Brent. And he came in while I was grocery shopping. I was like, hey man, if you can just check the torque on everything and swap out these brake pads, that'd be amazing. Like, I'm going to grocery shop, and that saves me time for swapping out my brake pads. Plus, I don't have a torque wrench on me. Like, that's kind of what I wanted, was just the peace of mind. And it turns out my headset had come a little bit loose.
Oh, right.
And he tightened it back to spec. And then even the faceplate on my stem had come a little loose, and he torqued that back to spec. And I was like, awesome. Like, I'm glad I did this.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to give him a shout out. But that was not like something I needed to change with my setup, but that was like the closest I had to mechanical. Was like, well, man, I wonder how much further I rode if like
Southern Steel.
Slow Southern Steel.
Slow Southern Steel. Single speed.
Held up amazing.
Yeah. Go figure.
And the Smokehouse Cycles doing the final tune-up before. So like an insert in the rear tire, and I would do flat pedals again if I was doing single speed again. And that gearing, I think I would do that gearing again. And maybe there's some badass 2.35 tire that exists between now and then where I would change it or whatever. The aero bars, I loved them up high on 50 mil risers. I borrowed those from
I
Jacob.
Use 50 mil too, yeah.
No, nice and high, really good. I would have a better headlamp. So the sine wave beacon dynamo light is mediocre as far as a light. I love that you're not charging it. It's like, it's powered by you rolling along. But if you're doing something where you're moving slow, it's flickery or very low. And my headlamp is just an older headlamp I have, very basic AAA batteries. And especially I did the CDT of New Mexico in the dark, and it was just very hard to see and navigate, and that did not work out well. I was thinking, there's so much sunlight, I really don't need to worry about lighting too much. It's like, if I'm riding, it's going to be maybe for an hour or two in the dark, maybe 3, and mostly like gravel roads where it's like you don't need much. And it just turned out there's like some key moments where CDT, for example, that was hours of trying to navigate, that a better light would have been very helpful. And then a few descents where you're just like, man, I could be going faster down this descent and be a little less sketched out. So that's really it, which makes me feel awesome. Like,
you kind of nailed it.
Yeah, so I feel really great about the setup. And a lot of it was testing stuff for many, many months leading up to it. And then just being lucky with having custom like bags just to be able to talk through it and like test things out and be like, this works, this doesn't. Here's a subtle little thing that I think we need to change. And like, I know this is probably for the 1%, but hey, I'm going to be the 1%. And like, I think we got to change this. So yeah. Setup was
insane.
Awesome.
First Tour Divide.
Yeah. The more information that's out there, it helps, and then having friends that have done it, like you get your little tidbits that you can. And then from there, it's just testing stuff and like being confident that like what you're doing is going to translate to that.
Yeah. You wrote some notes on your phone.
Yeah.
When you were finishing, we were talking about this before we started recording, but like on that, I think it was from like Hachita, the last 30 miles or something.
Trying to stay awake. Yep.
Yeah. Trying to stay awake, writing notes on your phone.
Yep.
What was going through your mind as you were finishing? What did you write?
The notes were really just like different points along the route of like things I didn't want to forget, like stories just to tell friends or things I didn't want to forget personally after a while. But it's mostly just trying so desperately to stay awake. It was the hardest I've ever tried to stay awake. I can genuinely say the hardest I've ever tried in my life to stay awake, where I took the one nap that's 3 or 4 minutes. I finally found a bush that's big enough for shade, and I took a short nap, kept my helmet on, and it was like agony. It was awful. I was in so much pain trying to stay awake. Like, it's never been like that before. And like, I was trying to convince myself for so long not to take another nap.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I was doing, was just taking the notes. But like I said, the sun was so bright. I had the brightness all the way up on my phone and I could barely see, but it was like anything to occupy my brain, to like distract. I needed tasks. Like, someone joked that you needed like a fidget thing at the end of the arrow bars, like a Rubik's Cube or something to like fiddle with your hands.
Oh, to help. Yeah.
But it was outside of that, I would get hyper focused on an object on the left side of the road until I like got to it. And then I'd switch and stare at the right side of the road and pick an object and stare at it. And after doing that for a bit, I was like, okay, I need to mess with something that's in one of my bags. And I was out of all my food, so I couldn't eat food. Like, couldn't do that. Had no more water to drink. But it was so crazy because you're so happy. You're like, I'm about to be done, and this is not challenging. This is smooth sailing pavement to the finish. But it was like, for me, it was like hell. And I don't know, maybe 10th place. Benjamin hears that and he's like, oh, sick. Like, okay, cool. Like, I was 45 minutes behind you and I didn't realize that that's how you felt there at the end. Like, man, and I have to thank some of these guys that pushed from basically Pie Town to the finish. They probably weren't like in the best of way either. Like, they were, I was inspired when I was looking at the dots and I saw Martin up there with Mike. I was like, damn, dude, they're duking it out here at the end. And, seeing Dan, I'm like, go Dan, like, no more big naps, like, push it to the finish. And then seeing Benjamin be like, damn it, Benjamin, you're like not letting me take a big nap. And so that was the final bit there. I know I kind of touched on it earlier, but yeah, so the setup was amazing. Can't believe how depleted I was at the end. So I guess that's one other thing I would change with my setup, is find some kind of magic fidget tool to stay awake at the very end.
What did you use to stay? Did you use caffeine pills or anything?
I didn't do caffeine pills. I'd end up getting like 5-hour energies because they pack pretty small and you get a shot of it.
Punch too. Yeah.
It's part of it. It's like almost like the enjoyment of like cheers to like trying to stay awake. Like, you take a shot of it, there's something about that versus like a pill, and you can keep getting them throughout. And I didn't do a whole lot of caffeine early on. I remember even having a day being like, holy shit, dude, caffeine's great. Like, you should be having more caffeine. And so, I was really bummed the last night. I was really looking forward to getting caffeine in Silver City for my big final push, and everything was closed. And then so I finally got caffeine at like maybe 11 in the morning at that one place, and I was like, I already had to go through the night. Like, I took a nap before Silver City, and there's a couple other occasions where I was like, I wish I just bought 3 more 5-hour energies.
Yeah,
like, at the time you're like, this doesn't seem responsible to buy 6 5-hour energies at once. But there's just, it can be like, oh, here's a stretch of 20 hours where it's, oh yeah, you had 2 or 3 of them, you went to sleep, and then you had another one when you woke up in the morning. Like, yeah, that ends up being several 5-hour energies, but I would just buy like 2 because I'm like, that seems more responsible. So yeah, caffeine, fair bit, but I definitely could have pushed it more on the caffeine, which anyone that knows me well would be like, what? Because I drink so much caffeine.
Yeah, I drink my fair share. The hardest thing I think about my job, if we call this a job, is ending a podcast.
Yeah, knowing how to end it.
Well, I have a million questions, and you have a million stories.
Yeah.
But at some point, we just have to say that was good enough.
Yeah.
And I think at 12, what are we at?
I think that's now. Yeah. It's
12:36
Yep.
after 3 hours and 4 minutes, something like that. Yeah. It's good enough. Andrew Onermaa. I don't even know what I can say. I'm really happy for you. I'm proud of you.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
I was I really focused on your dot, you know, and like I was really rooting for you the whole time. And for you to go and tackle something that I know for you is big, and for anybody who tackles Sword to Bite is big.
Yeah.
And for you to have such a great result and a good experience, I'm really happy for you.
Thanks,
and
man.
It's truly been a pleasure to get to drive to Arkansas and
awesome.
And have a chat with you about it for sure.
I really appreciate it, and I could feel the love from so many people, and it's that guiltiness of there's so many text messages that I just am never going to reply to,
Right.
and so many Instagram messages and I know most people understand that. They're just like, they wanted to encourage me, and they weren't expecting to hear anything at all. But yeah, it's like those times I'd turn on the phone and just see it getting blown up. I could just really feel how much people cared and how in tune they were. And yeah, so it means the world. And that was definitely extra like motivating on top of the chasing whatever dots or trying to be what top 10. It was just, you kind of feel like that local hero, even if like it wasn't people that were local to Arkansas or whatever. It's just, it had that energy, and yeah, it was awesome. So thanks for letting me share with a lot of the people that were watching so intensely and wanted to hear more, because I didn't share shit. So.
I know, but that was kind of the fun part about this is like, it's kind of fun going into a podcast when like I have a lot of information and I'm like, oh, what happened here? What happened here?
Yeah.
But it's also fun to go and be like, I'm going to get to hear about it for the first time, you know, like, all right. I took this photo. This is out on your back patio. You have a paint stir stick.
Oh yeah.
With mountains drawn on it. And it says, this day is a gift, Tour Divide 2025. What does that mean?
On Nate Griffey and I toured up from the border. I guess it was right before we toured. We were kind of like gathering what are final things I need. And I was like, a paint stick would be good in case it's super muddy.
Yeah.
Especially like unbound gravel.
Yeah.
There's some years where it's muddy, and it's like have a paint stick. That's a great way to get mud off. And I was like, I'm going to bring a paint stick. It doesn't take up any space, super light, might come in handy. And after carrying it up to Banff and stuff and having it for a few days, it's like, oh, that's a good downtime activity. Let me decorate my paint stick.
Oh, before the divide.
Before it started.
Yeah.
And in the hotel room, I was like, I think it was the day before. I was like, I need to put something on this still. And Nate's kind of laughing. He's like, oh, yeah, you said you were going to do that. You should do that. And it's like, okay, if I'm using this, it's not going to be like the most fun situation. It's like, if I'm using this, it's muddy.
Right.
I'm like obviously being slowed down. I might be in for many hours of like not ideal conditions. And it's like, I'm not going to put some punk rock, like heavy metal slogan of like, get through it and rah. It's like,
You're a
like,
badass.
It's like, I was like, this day is a gift. Like, if you're out there scraping mud off of your tires, you got to remember, like, you're in the middle of riding the Tour Divide. And like how much you've wanted to do this over the last few years, and you're like, finally get the chance to do it. And so I was like, that's what it is. It's like, you need to just be like grateful in the moment that, hey,
how many other people wish that they were scraping mud off of their tires on the Tour Divide right now.
Right.
So
it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's kind of like this day is a gift. Just try to keep it positive. And yeah, I used it once pretty briefly. I caught up to Javier and Mike Martin a little bit before Del Norte, which I wasn't expecting. I actually snuck into 6th place overall for a little bit, pretty late into the game, which was exciting. And I saw it was getting muddy and it was about to get really muddy. And I kind of paused for a second. I had some music going and I hear like a whistle and something to the side. I didn't even know something, but it's Javier. And he's like sitting up in his sleeping bag. He's like, hey, he's like, what's up? And I was like, man, what? I was expecting to see you guys here. What's going on? He's like, oh man, it's muddy, it's too muddy. And I was like, I don't know, man. I'm pretty hungry. I think I'm going to try. And then Mike kind of like rumbles around. He's like, who's that? And then he's like, it's Andrew. And
it's fucking Andrew.
Javier is like, remember me? Because like we saw each other at the high country and rode together some. Super awesome guy. And I was like, yeah, man, of course I remember you. And we chat a little bit more and like, oh yeah, it's really bad. And I'm like, I'm real hungry, man. And it was daylight. And so like, I think I kind of woke them up. They were stuck there for a while. So I did that section for a little bit, and there's once I got off and scraped for a little bit. But being single speed and steel bike, I was just like, man, I can get through a lot right now. And
2.4 inch tires.
Yeah, even with it, I took off the front fender, so it gave a little bit of extra, and it was pretty short lived. It was gross for a little bit, but I like was riding in the grass and got through it, and then they caught up to me by the time we got to Del Norte anyway. So it was like. But yeah, that was what the paint stick was for. Carried that all the way. Thought about throwing it away once or twice.
Nah.
And I was like, oh, you might need it at the end. And then it's like, well, it's made it this far. And yeah, so I have it. And
we're going to have to mount it somewhere.
Yeah, I'm going to put it somewhere.
Yeah.
It's got some mud on it too. So yeah.
Well, shit.
I think we should go to sleep.
All right. Congratulations, man.
Thanks,
seriously.
Patrick. Yeah.
What a fucking Tour. I mean, that's how you do Tour Divide. I mean, if you're going to do it, balls out, man.
Yeah.
It's
very special. Insane. I loved it. And anyone that's thinking about doing it, keep thinking about doing it and maybe wait one more year until you have to do it. You know, I think that's the final piece is wait until you just absolutely have to do it and there's no other choice and then go do it. And if you have a year where you think you're about there, start making the moves to get ready for it. And if anything says it's not right, then that's fine. Just
it's always going to be there.
It's always going to be there. And I think, especially for those that really want to pour their heart and soul into it and go super hard, and they don't know if they're willing to do that just yet. Yeah, I think it's the common theme is the people that do really well, that meet some of those goals that they set, is that they just got to a point where they had to. And I think that's something that's really special that we don't find a whole lot in ultra racing. And it kind of requires that dedication. So yeah, I would love to see some more single speeders trying to put down a time like that. And love seeing both the men and women pushing the overall outside of that. And
it was a fun year.
Every year the top 10 gets more and more competitive. So yeah, it's like the Tour de France, Super Bowl, and everything else wrapped into one for bike packing.
Tour de France started today, actually. Yeah.
So I'm going to be dedicated dot watcher even more so every year, just being able to relate to all the different places. And yeah, again, thanks for letting me share the story, and let's go sleep.
It's been my honor. Cheers, buddy.
Right. Cheers.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
If there's anything in there. Podcast over. Bye.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning into today's episode. And fucking hell, Andrew, I'm so stoked for you. And thanks again for having me into your home and having this chat with me. I really appreciate it, and can't wait to see what you do next. One thing that I meant to mention at the top of the hour is that I already had an episode scheduled all about the Central Texas Showdown taking place tomorrow, which is July 9th. And that conversation is still going to take place, but it's going to look a lot different now. And I just wanted to say at the top of the hour that I'm going to be releasing more information about how we can, as a community, get involved and what we can do. And so that topic, like I said at the top of the hour, is still ongoing, and we're going to be recording a episode tomorrow just about the Central Texas Showdown and about the floods that occurred recently. So that will be coming out soon. As always, it is a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, you know what to do. Go ride your damn bike.
It was the middle of the night. You grabbed your knife and you held it tight. The sounds of beasts kept you awake. The sounds they made kept you afraid. In the morning, you packed your bike. Memories forgotten from the previous night. You rode faster than ever before. Was it your imagination or merely folklore? Fear turned into strength as you pushed further. Every pedal stroke stronger and firmer. Your bike feels weightless, your legs aren't tired. You think to yourself, just a few more miles. Bikes, oh death, bikes.